Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Graduate Student Orientation. My name is Laura Young, and I am really excited that they gave me the honor of being the first person to welcome you today. I have an interesting role here in graduate studies, and believe it or not, you and I have all already had some sort of sixth degree of separation contact because my full-time job is actually doing the application, the status portal, and sending out those admission letters. So believe it or not, I played a small role in you becoming a UC Davis Aggie. But that is where my role stops because you guys are amazing. We are so lucky, we are so excited to have you as part of our Aggie community. You should know we had over or almost 13,000 people apply to be graduate students here at UC Davis. And you are the cream that rose to the top. I wish that I was doing all of this in person. I wish that I could look out in our giant Mondavi Center at over 1,200 of you who registered for our orientation and tell you how excited I was for you to be sitting in front of me. I actually thrive off of that. But for now, we're going to do this through a Zoom webinar format. And I will just say, you know, even though it may not look like what you thought it should have looked like at the beginning of your graduate career, we are here today to celebrate the start of this journey for you. We are here to tell you just how awesome you are. We are here to give you as many resources as we can to set you off on the right foot. And hopefully we're here to get you excited about what is lying ahead as we go into fall quarter. All right, with that welcome, because again, I'm selfish and I get to say it first, let's talk a little bit about some housekeeping rules that we have here with Zoom. We are doing this through a Zoom webinar, so you are all already automatically muted and your screens are turned off. Additionally, the chat feature has been turned off so that really you don't have a whole lot of requirements. You can sit back, relax, and enjoy the information that's being presented to you. However, this does not mean that we don't want to know if you have questions. We would love to help answer any questions that you might have. So we do have a question and answer feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You should see a Q&A button. So if anything pops into your head as you're listening to these sessions, if there's something that's been burning inside of you that you really need answered, we would love to have you go ahead and type that in there, and we will either answer it as it gets presented. We'll type it back in that Q&A feature, or we will actually have a Q&A session at the very end of this. So about the last 40 minutes of orientation, we're going to have a big panel of experts here at Graduate Studies and some students here on campus to answer any of the questions that you may have. So please utilize this Q&A feature throughout the day. Additionally, if you've been on Reddit or other social media sites, if you see someone else type in a question that you had, go ahead and upvote it so we know we have a lot of people who are really interested in that. Last thing we'll ask is that we keep questions and answers to questions and answers rather than commentary. We have other great social media sites like our Facebook group. We have UC Davis Slack. If you haven't already signed up for that, that's lots of ways to interact with people. But today we're going to really try and get through those questions and answers as we can. A couple of other things. We are recording this event. So if you are coming to us from a different time zone, right now it is 9:04 a.m. where I am. It may be 1 in the morning where you are. If you cannot make it through this whole thing, we are recording it. We will be emailing out the link and we will be hosting it on our website. So you can come back later and get the full content of what we are providing. And then finally, we have lots of options for you as far as viewing what you're seeing and then also accessibility. So if you need to toggle back and forth between what is shown on the screen as a share screen and the person who's speaking, aka if you really want to see this beautiful face closer, you can go up to the view options and you should be able to either share screen or switch your speaker view. And then we also are live transcribing this. So we are using a service called Otter AI, and there should be a live stream button on the left-hand corner of your screen. If you click on that, you should see the option to go to that Otter AI live stream. So that's all of the guidelines that I have. So let's move on. Let's go back to welcoming you and talking about today. So last thing I want to leave with you before I actually start introducing some people is that you're not alone on this journey, right? This is a huge undertaking, becoming a graduate student, progressing through to getting your master's degree or your PhD. And we don't expect you to have all the answers. We don't expect you to know how to navigate all of these waters by yourself. So we have a lot of people here who are really excited about your journey and who also have a lot of information and knowledge and resources that can help you not only today, day one, but throughout the entirety of your graduate career. So we're going to introduce some of those people. We've got some people who have some really great content to share with you today. And we're going to make sure that you know how to get in touch with those people so that if questions come up in the future, that you can continue to feel well supported along this journey. So without further ado, we're going to move into our first speaker. And this is a big name for us. We actually have UC Davis's Chancellor, Gary May. He has a message for you so that he can welcome you here to campus himself. So take it away, Gary.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to UC Davis and the next phase of your academic careers. UC Davis has a great reputation for excellence in teaching, scholarship, and research. I'm pleased to welcome you to UC Davis and the next phase of your academic careers. UC Davis has a great reputation for excellence in teaching, scholarship, and research. Money Magazine ranked UC Davis #4 among public universities in the country. The Wall Street Journal Times Higher Education poll ranked us #5 for the second year in a row. Our graduate and professional programs are also highly ranked. We're #1 in the world for veterinary medicine. We're #1 in the nation for agriculture and forestry. Graduate students are the bedrock of our success. Our graduate community is making important discoveries and contributions that move our campus, our region, and the world forward. As scholars, researchers, teachers, and community builders, you will help shape the UC Davis community. As mentors and teaching assistants, you will have the power to transform the lives of our students. You can help undergraduates discover and realize their life quests and career goals. This is more important than ever, as students are experiencing uncertainties and learning in real time about global challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic. Know that UC Davis has high expectations of its graduate students. In addition to your studies, you'll interact with the broader campus community, assisting students and faculty, and taking part in the inclusive development of our diverse community. Our faculty, the Graduate Studies program, and UC Davis leadership are invested in your success. So take advantage of the many resources available to you. Whether you're looking for a mentor, need help in finding employment, or something else. Again, I'm thrilled to welcome you to the UC Davis community. I look forward to seeing you on campus in the future. Go Ags.
Well, thank you so much, Chancellor May. And again, listening to that, I think one of the big things that's a takeaway there is that he recognizes and we recognize just how important you as graduate students are, not only to the health of your programs, but to undergraduates, to the research, to the broader community. So again, we are really lucky that you have decided to join our Aggie family. All right, our next presenter is none other than our Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Studies, Jean-Pierre Delplanque. And real quick before I turn it over to him, I just want to say on a personal note that you are very lucky that this is the man who represents you as an administrator for all graduate students. I have worked in graduate studies for 10 years. I met him on my very first day before I was even hired for UC Davis. He actually interviewed me for my first job on campus. And for a year, I interacted with him as an advisor for graduate students in the mechanical and aerospace engineering department. And during that time, I had a firsthand view of just how invested he was in student success and walking that fine line between understanding how to keep things fair and equitable and navigate the policies that we have here, but also to look at students as a whole and to advocate for things that students need. So you guys, I am more than thrilled to go ahead and introduce our Dean, JP Delplanque.
Good morning, everyone. I'm still trying to decide who's the toughest act to follow, whether that's Chancellor May or Laura. Laura is very kind, and she's been great. It's been great working with her all these years. As she mentioned, she plays a key role in the logistics of admissions, and so you've already interacted with her. We have a great team in grad studies who worked really hard to put this orientation together, and I hope this is all very useful to you. And thank you for making the effort to be with us and from various time zones. I've seen people talking about being 1 a.m. Where they are. Thanks for being here. So yes, my name is Jean-Pierre Delplanque. I serve as Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Studies, and I am honored to have the opportunity to welcome you in the UC Davis family. I won't lie. I wish that we had the opportunity to start this new academic year and this new era of your academic journey together in person. Regardless, I'm still thrilled to have the chance to officially welcome you into a powerhouse of academic innovation and creativity. 6,000 graduate students strong. You and your peers represent over 100 distinct graduate and professional degree programs here at UC Davis. Our strength is rooted in our ability to break down disciplinary boundaries in the name of collaboration, innovation, and community. Today, I want you to start thinking about preparing yourself for the long, often rewarding, but sometimes tough road ahead. Even in simpler times, graduate school is intellectually challenging and can be socially isolating. It takes some effort, but it's important for you to make that effort, make time and space to engage in the social and intellectual life of the greater university. How can you do that in our current physically distant world? Well, remain socially connected by signing up for Zoom social events and work with your graduate program coordinators to connect with your cohort. Make connections with students, faculty, and staff from across the university. Believe it or not, you've arrived at just the right time. Today, we're at the dawn of a period of significant change in the graduate education community at UC Davis. By the time you've completed your first year of graduate school, several new resources will be at your disposal. Among these, we'll formally launch the Grad Pathways Institute for Professional Development next month. This new institute is already providing new professional development tools, digital resources, and curricula for our graduate student and postdoctoral community. Another milestone, and this is a big one, we will be opening our graduate center to our graduate education community in the coming academic year. This graduate center has been many years in the making. It was intentionally designed to promote interdisciplinary interaction and build community. Not only will the building serve as a home base for the Graduate Student Association, but it will also be providing access to professional development, diversity resources, and networking opportunities. Of course, access will be limited by public health guidance for the next few months, but once we're able to resume more in-person activities, we want you to think of the Graduate Center as your home on campus, a place where you can find the support you need to succeed in your career at UC Davis and beyond. I want you to know that the entire graduate education community is here to support, sustain, and encourage you during your time at UC Davis. It is a privilege to welcome you into this vibrant learning community. You make us what we are, and we look forward to the fresh ideas and energy that you bring to our campus. I know I speak for the entire faculty, staff, and greater community of UC Davis in saying we're so happy you have made the decision to join us. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, JP. So again, wonderful introductions from some of our really outstanding faculty and administrators that we have here, but I'm sure you also want to hear from some students, people who have similar experiences than you. So the next two people I'm going to introduce are just those people, students who understand the UC Davis experience, but they're also really invested in all of the things that graduate students could ask for. So they are huge advocates. So we're actually going to start with the president of our Graduate Student Association, Jonathan Minnick, and I will let him explain just what the GSA can do for you. Jonathan, I'm not sure we can hear you right now. All right, well, technical difficulties can happen. So hopefully we'll get Jonathan on here and he can tell you a little bit more about the Graduate Student Association. But if not, we're going to have a virtual resource fair later on today, and I believe that the GSA is represented there as well. So if we miss him, you can always circle back around and get him. So the next person I would like to introduce is also a graduate student here at UC Davis. She is a doctoral candidate, but in addition to being an amazing scholar and researcher, she actually holds a position here that is the graduate student advisor to the dean and chancellor. She actually works here in graduate studies with us. She converses with Chancellor May. She does a lot of advocacy for students. So I will let her explain just everything that she has been working on in this past year. So without further ado, I am happy to introduce Sland Echold.
Good morning, everyone. I am so excited and so happy to be here with you this morning to welcome you to UC Davis. As Laura said, my name is Sland Echold, and I am the graduate student advisor to the dean and chancellor. Actually, I'm the outgoing GSADC. And I have to say, the incoming GSADC, Jillian Moyes, is fantastic. And really, I only have 3 things to say this morning. And one is that this position is here for you. The GSADC advocates on behalf of graduate students. And so if you're having issues with your TA appointment, if you're having issues with finding out about resources that you need, with your graduate advisor, your PI, please reach out to the GSADC because this position is here to advocate on your behalf at both the graduate studies to talk with the Dean JP as well as the Chancellor. The second thing that I have to say this morning is for you all to ask questions. Do not hesitate. As a first-gen grad student, when I came here 5-6 years ago, I remember being really afraid to be asking questions because I thought maybe they might be the wrong kind of questions, or maybe I should already know some of these answers. But the reality of it is that's why you're here, to ask questions, not just for your research, but ask questions about your program, ask questions about resources that are available to you. We've mentioned the resource fair today that's happening at 12:15. Come to that fair and find out what is available for you here while you're at UC Davis. And lastly, you do belong here. You are where you are supposed to be. There was no mistake. No, the committees that decided to accept you into UC Davis made the right decision. And so you are home. Make yourself comfortable and welcome. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Slan. That feels like I got a big virtual hug, and I'm not even a graduate student. So I hope you all feel the warmth and caring that Slan really has for you. And it's true. Everything she said is excellent advice. So don't pay attention to what I have to say. Listen to that lady. She's a smart girl. We're going to try and circle back to Jonathan. He said that it looks like his computer might be up and working. So let's see if we can make it work this time. Jonathan Minnick, president of the GSA.
Okay. It says that the host has stopped my video, so hopefully, there we go. All right. My apologies for the complications. This is what you get for trying to make your workspace a little bit nicer. Of course, we're still all working from our bedrooms, so it is what it is. Hello, I'm Jonathan Minnick. I'm the president of the Graduate Student Association here at UC Davis. I am a 5th-year PhD candidate in the Department of Music. So those of you who are in my department, I'm sure I will get to know you very much over the next year. And hopefully for some of you in other departments, I hope the same. This is my 3rd year as GSA president, so I've been doing this for quite a long time. And it's been such an enjoyable experience for me to do this, to serve in this capacity. The GSA does a lot of things for graduate students, ranging from advocacy efforts like Sland was mentioning. We often partner with the GSADC to work on our advocacy efforts, whether that's for international students or for accessibility issues or educational academic problems. We are excellent at working together and trying to solve those problems. We are also the primary governance wing for graduate students. So every department has a set of representatives, depending on how many people in your department. So if you're in chemistry, you might have 14. If you're like me in music, we only have 1. So we weight things accordingly based on how many people are in your program, but we meet monthly, we discuss resolutions, we fund special projects, we do a lot of organizing and planning on voting, like typical government things. So we do quite a lot of that every month. And then of course we are one of the main social outlets for graduate students. We've had to make, of course, the virtual turn, but we've successfully done that. Our events coordinator, Timothy Walker, is incredible, and he's planning a lot of great social events for this quarter and for future quarters, and they will all be remote for as much as we have to be. So they've been very successful in the past, and we hope that they will continue to be that way, and we look forward to welcoming you into that circle. I won't speak much more. I know that we've got a tight schedule today. We do have a resource fair this afternoon at 12:45. We're in the second session. And please check out our website, gsa.ucdavis.edu, if you want to learn more information. Thanks, and have a great orientation.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm so glad that we were able to get that to work. All right, folks, I'm not going to talk much more because this is a really important piece, and I want to make sure that Stephen has more than enough time to talk to you about student financial support, how you're going to navigate paying for graduate school and making sure that you have enough money to live. So this is our Director of Financial Student Services, Stephen Albrecht.
Good morning, everyone. So glad you could be here today. We really appreciate it. All right. So again, my name is Stephen Albrecht. I'm the Director of Graduate Student Financial Support. Here's the agenda for today. We are going to have some introductions. We do have a quick survey I know you can't all introduce yourselves, but we're going to try and find out where you are. I'm going to briefly go over some financial support quick tips, and then we're going to talk about the cost of attending graduate school, and then we're going to talk about the main ways that you can fund your graduate education, and hopefully UC Davis can help you with that quite a bit. The most exciting part of my presentation is talking about income taxes, so I hope you're all sitting on the edge of your seats waiting for that exciting piece. We'll have a few reminders at the end. And then, as Laura had mentioned, we're not taking live questions during this presentation, but we definitely will have a section at the resource fair at 12:45 where you can log in with us on Zoom and ask us questions there. And you should have all gotten an email to let you know about that. So why are we making you kind of sit through kind of a longer presentation about student financial support at UC Davis? One of the main reasons is that financial support can be complicated. Graduate school is expensive. There are basically 4 different ways you can fund your graduate education. You can win a fellowship, which is free money. You can work at the university, an academic employment. You can take out a student loan, or you can pay your own way with personal resources. And again, the reason why we're talking about all of these today is because a lot of grad students change the type of funding quarter to quarter. So you could have a fellowship in fall, work as a TA in winter, and so it can change quite a bit. So we want to make sure you understand all of the pieces. Again, I work for Graduate Studies. We are the financial support unit of Graduate Studies. What we do is we assist with the entire fellowship process. And I'll introduce a lot of other units on campus that do all of the financial support that is not fellowships. We get to do the best kind, just the free money and the fellowships. So we help graduate students find and apply for fellowships. We help with post-award administration. So after you've won your fellowship, how do we kind of wrap that all up in the accounting systems? We oversee the process of awarding fellowships. We help the graduate program staff and faculty understand how to process fellowships. We host a ton of reference information on the Grad Studies website. So I highly recommend that you log into our website and look up all of the information that we host, including this PowerPoint presentation, the financial tips. We have a whole webpage on that. A lot of information about our internal fellowship competitions, how to find external fellowships, and all kinds of other information. So our website is a great resource. Again, we're the Graduate Student Financial Support Unit in Graduate Studies. My staff include Amina Halalian, who's an external fellowship analyst. She couldn't be with us this morning, but she will be at our Zoom reference fair section tonight. So if you have, or this afternoon at 12:45. So if you have questions about external fellowships, Amina will be there. Next up in our unit is Ruth Lee. She's an internal fellowship analyst. I don't know if Ruth is here. And she helps with the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences, Engineering, School of Medicine, and Veterinary Medicine. So we have graduate students in all of those schools and colleges. Heidi West is our other internal fellowship advisor. She helps with the Colleges of Letters and Sciences, Biological Sciences, Nursing, and Education. So they kind of split the academic schools and colleges, so you kind of have a more of a one person point of contact. And again, I'm the director. So that's kind of the introductions of our team. We're going to try and throw up an online survey really quickly just to find out where you are. And again, we're doing this by time zone. It's 9:30 Pacific Daylight Time here. There are 10 options here. We'd like you to try and answer this so we can kind of find out where everyone is. My apologies, this is US centric. I've kind of broken it down by Pacific, Mountain, Central, and Eastern, but then I have a couple of broad sections for the rest of the world. So we're hoping you guys can answer that and we can let us know where you're at. I know some of you, it's very early in the morning. I'm not sure how long I should let you guys take to answer this one. I want to hear from maybe we have some people from another planet that are taking graduate education. And again, we really appreciate, taking the time to tune in this morning and help us give you some important information. We're going to see the results. All right. So it looks like the winner is definitely people in Davis. So that's nice. About half of you guys, I'm not exactly sure how many people are online right now, about 1,000. So we definitely have people in Asia Pacific, Europe, a lot of people here in our time zone, but mostly in Davis, so that's great. Thank you so very much. Okay, so again, my unit gets to help all you guys with fellowships. There are a lot of other units on campus. We're kind of siloed. The most important contacts for you guys is your own graduate program. So your graduate program advisors, faculty members, and your graduate program staff coordinators, those are definitely your best friends. You should definitely know who that person is and go to them absolutely first for any questions you have about financial support. And on the Grad Studies website, if you don't know who your coordinator is, I highly recommend you find that person as soon as possible. On our website, we have a listing of all the graduate programs and who your coordinator is. Now, if you're working as an employee for UC Davis, you may not be working for your own graduate program. If you're a TA, you're working for an undergraduate department. If you could be in a lab of a faculty member in another graduate program. So if you're being hired as an employee, that could happen from other graduate departments, your graduate department, or an undergraduate department. Student accounting is a very important unit on campus. They handle the real money. So if you owe on your bill, you pay student accounting, and if you have a refund from fellowships, then they own the student system and they pay you your refunds. Payroll services. So again, if you're being hired as an employee, you're hired in UC Path, our payroll system, just like I am as an employee. If you're getting a loan from the university, then that's the financial aid office. So loans are very highly regulated and restricted, and that's a complete office all by itself, financial aid. And they have a great website to help you with loans. The registrar's office is very important, very important. How you interact with the registrar's office determines what we charge you for tuition and fees and non-resident supplemental tuition. So making sure that you follow everything that the registrar's office needs. If you're a US citizen and not a California resident, you really need to log into the registrar's website and start that process to establish California residency right now. That's very, very important. And then for our international students, SISS, Services for International Students and Scholars, very important office for that population of students. You know, they help you with orientation, your visas, and all kinds of advice. So SISS is very important. So quick tips, we're gonna go through this very, very fast. This PowerPoint is very text heavy, but I did that on purpose so you can use this as a reference later. Financial support timing. So for most students starting in the fall, our first payment is November 1st. So we pay everything in arrears. You work as an employee for a month during the month of October, and then we pay you November 1st. So it's important to understand that payment cycle. We really, really encourage you to sign up for direct deposit. There's 2 different direct deposit websites, one for student refunds and one for payroll if you're employed through UC Path. So, and again, we have these quick tips on our website and all the links so you can sign up for direct deposit. You really don't want to have to go down to Dutton Hall and pick up a paper check. Loans are available for the financial aid office. And again, if you need funds before November 1st, the financial aid department has emergency loans, short-term loans, and a transition loan. The application for that transition loan is up on their website right now, and you can get money in the next couple of days. So definitely check out that help. In order to be eligible for regular all-year loans, you have to fill out a FAFSA. And I'm sure you're familiar with this from your undergraduate days. I recommend that everyone fill out a FAFSA every year. You know, as soon as you get your tax documents in, you know, February, March, fill out your FAFSA. If that's already on file, life happens, you need a loan, then you're already ready to go. If you're expecting loans, you've already signed into My Awards and accepted some loans, those refunds should pay to you on September 23rd. And how the financial aid department determines how much loan you're eligible for is they have a budget. I won't go into this in too detail, but it's about $38,000 for U.S. citizens, for California residents. Anybody that's subject to NRST, it's $53,000. And so we want to be able to support you in your graduate education, but not overcompensate you. So we kind of have these caps on the budget. Other quick tips, we really need you to log in to SysWeb and enter your social security number. You should have gotten information about that. It's very easy. Again, with the registrar's office, statement of legal residence is important. I'm going to emphasize again, we want you to establish California residency. For any undocumented students that might be on the conference this morning, our AB 40 and Undocumented Student Center has a wealth of resources for you. If you have any questions, please reach out to them. So how much does it cost to attend UC Davis? The tuition and fees amount for this year is $18,700. Anybody that pays attention to how much it costs to get, you know, to go to higher education, as you should be, because you guys are all coming to graduate school. I know you've heard a lot of stories that the cost of education has outpaced inflation by a lot. Well, that's not true here at UC Davis. We've been able to keep the tuition and fees. We've only had a 3% increase in 9 years. So we're really trying to keep the costs down for you guys. If you're not a California resident, so you're a US citizen but didn't attend a high school or undergrad here in California, or you're an international student, we charge you an extra fee, non-resident supplemental tuition. That's imposed on us by the state of California. The reason for that, the logic is that your family hasn't been contributing to the tax base of University of California. So we're going to charge you a little bit more to attend a state school. We've done an amazing job. We have not increased the cost of our non-resident supplemental tuition for graduate students for over 20 years, since 2004, 2005. So again, we're really trying to keep the costs down for you guys. And I hope that's helping. If you have any questions about what your tuition and fees cover, there's definitely websites hosted by UC Davis that explain every nickel and dime that we charge you, you know, the origin of that fee and what we use the money for. So if you're interested in that, I recommend you do that. So graduate school is very expensive. I've got a little palate cleanser here. I didn't want to bias against dog lovers or cat lovers, so I tried to do a little of both. I hope that kind of helps with the cost a little bit. So the calendar, I want to talk about the calendar really quickly. Some of you may have gotten a kind of a scary email that says that your tuition and fees are due September 15th. That is the official due date for tuition and fees. However, academic graduate students are on a completely different calendar. And I want to assure you that you can never be dropped from current term classes because of an outstanding balance. So if you're registered and enrolled for fall, your bill will not impact that enrollment. What happens is the 8th week of the quarter for graduate students, if you have an outstanding balance on November 19th, then we will charge you a late fee, and we will either drop you from winter classes or put a hold on your enrollment for winter. So again, we have 8 weeks to resolve your tuition and fee balance. So again, I'm sorry about that kind of scary form email that goes out to all students, and this is all listed on our website, so you can see this in writing if you want. So no worries about not paying your tuition and fees right away. We're here to help. We do have a bunch of other fees at UC Davis. I just kind of want to mention these. These don't really apply to you at this time, but there is a way for graduate students to hold their connection to UC Davis, but go away for a quarter, and that's called PELP, Planned Education Leave Program. We do charge a little $70 fee for if you go out on PELP. When you're at the very end of your graduate career, we let you go on filing fee status, which means we only charge you, under $200, and then you can kind of finish your dissertation and graduate. After a PhD student has advanced to candidacy, they're eligible for in absentia registration. And again, we charge you less tuition and fees if you're away from the state of California doing research for a full quarter. Again, they're kind of, small fees, but they're really trying to help save you some money and still have an enrolled connection to UC Davis. So the types of support, we're going to talk about internal fellowships now. And my definition of internal fellowships is money controlled by UC Davis. One thing that's very important when thinking about fellowships is it's like a political campaign. I know we're in the midst of a presidential election, and you really have to start looking for money a year in advance. So this fall, you really have to start looking for fellowship support for next academic year. I want to really emphasize that. Fellowships, there's a huge variety of fellowships. They can be small travel awards to full year support. Again, can be as small as $500 or $65,000 a year. Many of them are very short, just a one time, and some of them are multi-year awards. So thousands of different kinds of fellowships out there. And again, many of the deadlines for application are this fall, and then their committees review the fellowships and award them in the spring, and then notify you, and then you're supported for next year. It's important that you search for the right fellowship for you. It should fit your area of study and where you are in your academic career. So some fellowships are only for new students, some are mid-career students, and some are for students who are just writing their dissertation. So we encourage you to search for the right fellowship for you. When people are reviewing your fellowship applications, it's important to understand that the reviewers are reading many, could be hundreds of applications as quickly as possible. It's very important that you have solid letters of reference. I mean, you're all amazing students. You received great letters of reference to earn admission to UC Davis. So I know that, you already have great letters of reference. But it's important to give your faculty member who's writing your letter plenty of advance notice, remind them who you are, what you're applying for. It's important that you don't have a bad letter. So I also recommend giving them a chance to opt out of writing the letter if they're too busy. It's very important when you're applying for fellowships that you concentrate on the essay and answer the essay very specifically. You really don't want to have one generic essay that you use for all fellowships. Many of them have specific questions. They're asking for very specific things. You want to make sure that what you're writing in your essay is a realistic proposal that you can accomplish in the time period of the award. So these are just a few hints to kind of help you apply for fellowships. when you win a fellowship, and I know many of you have, again, you're some of the top graduate students in the country, and many of you win internal and external fellowships. We do have some regulations for you to make sure and pay attention to. If you win a fellowship or you're funded, that was awarded to you, kind of at a snapshot in time. You didn't have any other awards. You're going to be a full-time student. So if anything changes, if you're funded and anything changes in your academic status, you really need to inform the party that awarded you that money. Because if you receive extra funding, or if you're going to work as an employee, anything that happens, you need to inform us, because we might need to change that funding and move it around. In order to receive fellowship funding, you have to be registered and enrolled full-time, which is 12 units for each quarter. Very important. We can't pay you a fellowship if you're a part-time student. That planned education leave program, very important. It's a great safety catch for our students. But when you go out on PELP, it's important for you to understand that we can't fund you with a fellowship while you're out on PELP. So that has to be part of your planning process if you want to go out on PELP. We do need you to have certain legal statuses in order to be paid a fellowship. So U.S. citizens, permanent residents. If you're in the country on an F1 or J1 visa, we can fund you. If you're remote outside the U.S., we can still pay you a fellowship. You don't have to, the visa is for entry. I know we have a lot of questions about this. We do have some issues with students who are sheltering in place outside the U.S. We'll work with you to try and either mail you a paper check or wire you the money. We'll work on that and get that taken care of. You have to maintain satisfactory academic progress and have a minimum GPA of 3.0. So if your GPA falls below 3.0, then we're going to develop a plan with you, and we may not be able to fund you. So it's very important that you concentrate on your studies. You may not be able to have multiple offers concurrently. Again, you guys are great graduate students. Many of you win multiple fellowships. No agency is going to want to pay you a fellowship if you're receiving a full fellowship from another entity. So we're going to need to work with you if you win more than one funding package, and try and hopefully spread that out, defer one, and help work with you and make sure you utilize those fundings in the best way. Some fellowships pay different parts of your expense of becoming a graduate student. Some of them pay tuition and fees. There are a lot of different fees that we charge you, like I talked about the PELP fee and filing fee, SIS service fee, library charges, health center charges. The registrar's office has a $150 document fee. We don't pay those directly with tuition and fee fellowships. Those should come out of your stipend or your loan or your employment salary. So we don't pay those directly for you. They're charged to your student account, and then you pay those miscellaneous fees. It's very important. We can't pay you a tuition and fee fellowship that's more than you were charged. So some students, for instance, opt out of UC Davis health insurance. If you do that, you do not get a refund of the difference between full tuition and fees and the amount charged without health insurance. So we're going to have to reduce your tuition and fee award to make sure you don't get an over award. So that's important information for you to understand. So internal fellowships are, it's funds controlled by UC Davis. There are many, many internal fellowships at UC Davis. So many individual graduate programs have their own fellowships. You may hear this program called the Graduate Program Fellowship Allocation. That's money that we give to every graduate program so they can pay fellowships to their students. Every graduate program uses that money in a little different way. So definitely, ask your graduate program coordinator about internal fellowships to your graduate program. Any fellowship that they award to you, they will give you an offer letter in writing. And if you have questions about that offer, then there will be contact information on that letter for you to ask questions. My unit in graduate studies also manages a large fellowship competition. So every year we have a fellowship competition. I'll talk about that in a minute. Mostly these are restricted endowments. Some very generous donors have given money to help students in graduate school here at UC Davis. We also have some travel awards to help students later in their career to go present independent research at different societies and meetings. So my unit, we control about $6.6 million a year in internal fellowships, about 68 fellowship opportunities, and we award about 300 students every year. 11 of these fellowships are open to international students, so it's important for our international students to know that. We have an online fellowship application. The due date is January 15th, so there's plenty of time. We're going to open that application very soon here, hopefully in September. And we encourage you all to fill out that online application. We do require letters of reference for our fellowship application, and you don't want to wait until the due date to register your recommenders. As soon as you log into this fellowship application, I would go ahead and register your recommenders so that they have plenty of time to submit their letters of reference. Very important, and you do not have to submit the fellowship application before you register your recommenders. So register those recommenders as soon as you can so that they have plenty of time to submit their letters. So again, your due date is January 15th, and then the graduate programs review all the applications and submit nominations to our office by February 5th. And then we'll start sending out offer letters that first couple weeks of March. So that's the internal fellowship competition. So external fellowships are fellowships not controlled by UC Davis. And there are literally hundreds of agencies out there, federal agencies, state agencies, private foundations that award fellowships to graduate students. And again, you guys are amazing. You win a lot of external fellowships. And we are funded over $10 million every year in external fellowships. We highly recommend that you check these especially these major external fellowships, and see if your area of study and where you are in your academic career makes you eligible for any of these. And we really recommend that you apply for them. Again, we have an external fellowship unit that assists you with these to find fellowships that match your criteria, help you apply. Amina is our main external fellowship analyst. We are hiring, we're filling in other positions, so we'll have 2. We have a central inbox to ask questions, externalfellowships@ucdavis.edu, and we monitor that inbox to help you with external fellowship questions. And again, we want you to ask questions and be able to submit these applications early and on time. On our website, we have search engines that help you find fellowships. A lot of them you can enter criteria that match your area of study. And so we definitely recommend, again, you look on our grad studies website. We have approaching deadlines and search engines, very, very good information for you to find that external funding. And again, those applications are going to be due right now in fall. So it's important that you get a head start trying to find a fellowship that can help you. So now we're going to switch gears for a second, and we're going to talk about employment at UC Davis. So we're not talking about fellowships anymore. We're talking about employment. So again, academic appointments equals student employment. This is where we hire you as an employee at UC Davis. You are hired by the hiring department. And again, that could be an undergrad department, your grad department, or another grad department. You're either working as a TA or working as a GSR. The way we talk about these appointments is the percentage or full-time equivalent is how many hours a week you work. So I'm a full-time employee. I work 100% time, so I'm a 100% FTE. A 50% employee is 20 hours a week. The max student eligibility for employment is generally 50%. We don't want you to work more than 20 hours a week. Some students go up to 75%, but you can't be a 100% employee and be a student. You know, when are you a student? So 50% is usually the max time. On our website, we have academic salary scales that tell you how much we pay for teaching assistants and graduate students, researchers. The regulations I went over earlier about fellowships also apply to employment. So you have to be a full-time registered graduate student, 12 units. You have to maintain a 3.0 GPA to be eligible to work. You know, you have to be in good academic standing. And of course, you have to be able to successfully perform the duties of the job. So just remember, to be employed and to be supported, you have to maintain these academic standards. We do have caps on, this is a long way away for you guys, but we do have caps on employment, 18 quarters for teaching assistants and 21 for research. Just keep that in mind. So the name we give to employees on UC Davis, a graduate student researcher, is a student that usually works in a lab for a faculty member, a principal investigator or PI. Every graduate program on campus has a salary scale so that every student with similar levels of experience are paid the same salary. These jobs are controlled by the PI and the graduate program. So if you want to find a research position, start with your graduate program coordinator. A teaching assistant is a graduate student that helps UC Davis with undergraduate education. So you're helping a faculty member in a classroom, grading papers, doing breakout sessions, things like that. Our teaching assistants are represented by a union. These other job classifications besides teaching assistant is an associate instructor. So that's where it's a graduate student that takes on the responsibilities of leading the class. And we also have tutors and readers, that help our faculty members with their classes, with grading papers and things like that. Again, to find a TA position, start with your graduate program. Start with your graduate program coordinator. They'll have all the information you need about teaching assistantships for their area of study. One of the most important benefits of working for the university is not only do you get a salary, but we also pay all or most of your tuition and fees. So we're going to pay you a salary for living expenses, but we're also going to cover your tuition and fees. So if you're a graduate student researcher and you're a California resident, you're going to receive a salary and we're going to pay 100% of your tuition and fees. So again, the amount the student pays is zero. If you're a California resident and you're a teaching assistant, we don't quite cover all of your tuition and fees. So just know that on your bill, if you're a TA in the fall and you're a California resident, you may owe $188.27. It's a penny different for winter and spring, but just a little bit. But so just keep in mind, check your account balance and know that you may have to pay that difference if you're a TA. If you're not a California resident, so again, a US citizen who has an established California residency or an international student, then if you're a graduate student researcher, again, we pay 100% of your tuition and fees. You won't have to owe any of your tuition fees. You'll receive a salary and we'll cover all of that. If you're a TA and you're not a California resident, we don't cover that $188 of tuition and fees, and we do not cover your non-resident supplemental tuition. So if you're a TA, you'll need to have other support to cover that NRST and that small $188. So NRST fellowships, again, UC Davis has tried very hard to keep our non-resident supplemental tuition flat for 20 years. But we also have a lot of fellowship programs to help students who are subject to NRST. But it's important to understand that these fellowship programs are only applicable to PhD candidates. Master's students don't fall under these programs. So those master's students out there, some of this information doesn't apply to you. We have an NRST waiver program for PhD students. This is for our international students. Once you advance to candidacy, we don't charge you for 3 years. And then your 4th and 5th year after advancement to candidacy, we do charge you again. But for that 4th and 5th years after advancement to candidacy, we have a non-merit fellowship program that covers your NRST. So we do help you again after you advance to candidacy for 5 years. After that, we're going to cover your NRST for you. Now, I kind of wanted to go through these again. It's a little confusing. So again, these are the non-resident supplemental tuition programs. If you're a US citizen and a California resident, we are never going to charge you non-resident supplemental tuition. Again, that's for master's and PhD students. If you're a US citizen and not yet a California resident, again, you have to go to the registrar's website and start that process immediately. We are going to charge you NRST your first year, but then you can establish California residency and we will no longer charge you NRST after that. And again, this applies to master's and PhD students. If you're not a US citizen, you're a master's student, then these programs don't apply to you. You're charged NRST every year. Now, if you're not a US citizen and you're a PhD student, the average time to degree is about 6 years. And I kind of wanted to lay out what happens every year. So the first year, you're not advanced to candidacy. Again, you're not a US citizen, you're a PhD student, we are going to charge you NRST. And hopefully you'll have a way to pay that as a GSR appointment or a fellowship. Again, year 2, typically students don't advance to candidacy in their first 2 years. We're going to charge you NRST. The vast majority of our PhD students do advance to candidacy in their 3rd year. And again, the UC system waives your NRST for 3 years after you advance to candidacy. So your 3rd year as a PhD student, 0 NRST. 4th year as a PhD student, 0 NRST. 5th year as a PhD student, again, a broken record, 0 NRST. Now on your 5th year, we're going to charge you NRST again, but we're going to pay it with that post-candidacy fellowship program. And again, your 7th year, we're going to pay it with the post-candidacy fellowship program. So again, really only before you advance to candidacy are you subject to NRST. Now, if you're an 8th or 9th year PhD student, that can happen. Then we're going to charge you NRST again, and you're no longer eligible for these fellowship programs. But yeah, you guys have a long time to worry about that. So I hope that clarifies the NRST fellowship program. Now the most exciting part, I hope everyone's still awake out there. Let's talk about taxes for a second. Very important for me to say, you know, UC Davis, we're not tax professionals. I cannot give you professional tax advice. I really need you to talk to an accountant and tax professional to really answer all of your tax questions. So if you're receiving any compensation from UC Davis, whether fellowships or employment salary, it very well might be taxable. So it's important for you to understand that it could be taxable. And remember, the tax year is different than the academic year. So you're starting fall, winter, spring for academic year 2021. Well, the tax year ends December 31st. So you'll have to file a tax return based on what happened this fall. And then winter and spring will go on next year's tax return. So it's very likely that you'll have to file 2 tax returns, a federal return, US federal, and a state return. And if you earned income in another state before you came to UC Davis, you might have to fill out a California state tax return and your home state tax return. So there could be multiple state tax returns. We do provide tax forms for you to help you fill out your tax returns. If you're receiving any kind of fellowship, we'll give you a 1098-T. If you're employed at the university as a student appointment, we will give you a W-2 form. And international students, we give you a 1042-S. That provides your fellowship support and helps you fill out your tax returns. If you want some very exciting reading, IRS Publication 970, The Benefits of Tax Benefits of Education is one of my favorite books. So I recommend that highly. Here's some very important tax information I'll let you guys read. Okay, that's all the time I've got for that today. So let's talk about some common scenarios really quickly. So where's my money? So you're a brand new graduate student. Things are confusing. And you're not exactly sure who's paying you. Where is my money? As I've mentioned previously, you really should contact your graduate program coordinator first. If you have any questions, they're your first point of contact. They've been through it, seen all of these scenarios, and they can help you. The next thing to do is if you're expecting money from UC Davis or an external agency, they will have given you an offer letter in writing. And on that letter, it will list a contact name. So, it really can be much more efficient if you just contact the person on your award letter. So start with them. If you're being hired as an employee, you have to actually go through the hiring process. Our payroll application, UC Path, you can log into UC Path and see if your appointment has been completed. So UC Path is a fun system to play in, and I recommend you look at that. If you've been promised some sort of financial support from a faculty member, your PI, then contact them. Now, they may not know exactly how you're being paid, but they can point you in the right direction to the staff that's helping you. So I recommend you can definitely talk to your faculty member. If it's an external fellowship question, again, that external fellowship's at ucdavis.edu, email. You can definitely send us an email and we'll try and track down where your money is. So here's another scenario that's kind of common. I referred to this a little bit earlier, but if you're not expecting any money or know exactly how much money you're going to get, and all of a sudden you receive a student refund in the amount of $1,708, what should you do? Well, we have some scenarios here. you know, some students would never know they got a refund because they don't check their bank account balances, or they don't check their student account. So we really recommend you check your student account every month, and watch your finances as closely as possible. Another scenario would be to tell no one that you received this money you weren't expecting, and spend it on some fun stuff. I don't recommend that. I think you should probably ask someone. So this specific dollar amount, $1,708, is the amount of the quarterly UC Davis health insurance program. So it's very possible that you opted out of health insurance. You had already received a full tuition and fee payment on your account. And when you receive the credit for your health insurance, this 1708 refunds to you. Well, that's an over award, unfortunately, and we're going to have to take that money back. So if you see that 1708, notify whoever is covering your tuition and fees immediately so that we can get an adjustment done on that. You're definitely required to have health insurance while enrolled at UC Davis, but you don't have to use UC Davis's health insurance. So if you're covered under your parents, or you have some sort of other proof of health insurance, you can opt out of health insurance from UC Davis. You know, you contact our student health department to do that. And again, if you know you're going to opt out of health insurance, then let your funder know immediately. And that way we can avoid the refund and the paybacks situation. Now we're almost done. Just do a quick review and some reminders. Again, you know, we really wish that funding you at UC Davis could be a little easier and more efficient, but the student support budget on campus is about $200 million. We're a little siloed. Some comes as fellowship, some comes as employment. And so here are the most common types of support you're going to receive. So if you're receiving a salary as an employee, that's paid via the payroll system. You can see that in UC Path. It does not show on your student bill, your employee salary. Academic employee remission. So if you're an employee and we're covering your tuition and fees as a benefit of employment, that does show on your student bill, and you will see that on your student bill. If you haven't been hired and you haven't entered your Social Security number, that remission may be delayed. So it's important that you get hired immediately, you know, before the start of the quarter, and that you enter that Social Security number in SysWeb. If you're receiving student fellowships, especially the stipend kind, these are all paid via Banner, the student information system, and you will see those on your student bill. If you're a US citizen, no withholding tax is deducted from your stipends. So that's why you really have to watch your income tax situation. You may owe income tax when you file your taxes at the end of the year. If you're not a US citizen, depending on your treaty with your home country, you may be subject to withholding tax. And I'm sure our international students are familiar with the term Glacier. That's a system that we have you log in and verify your citizenship and what your treaty is. If you're receiving a fellowship to pay your tuition and NRST, that does show on your student bill. You can see it there. So if it's posted, you'll see it there. If you're receiving loans through UC Davis, and that's through the My Awards system, that does show on your student bill. Now, some students can be going to their private bank or through their parents and receiving a loan. You know, those loans don't show on your student bill. Other types of common expenses, travel expenses. If you're going on a trip for UC Davis, we have a whole My Travel system that doesn't show on your student bill. And if you're purchasing supplies and equipment and being reimbursed, that's a completely different system. That's the KFS system. So you won't see that on your student bill either. Accounts and disbursements, again, check your student account balance very often. We recommend you check it every month, just like your credit card bill. Again, you guys are amazing. You may be winning multiple awards and fellowships and employment. You really have to make sure and check with your funders to see how we can coordinate multiple offers and make sure that you're not receiving multiple offers at the same time. Again, for US citizens, no withholding tax is deducted from your fellowship stipends. You may want to retain some savings in case you have a tax liability when taxes are due. These statuses, PELP and filing fee, can interrupt your funding. So remember to take that into consideration when deciding to choose those status. Again, the first stipend or employment check is November 1st. Again, go to the financial aid website. We have a transition loan program available if you need money sooner. And then finally, if you have a fall TA appointment, you could owe $188 in tuition and fees. So a TA remission doesn't cover the full cost of attendance. Well, that's it for me. I know that was very fast and that was very text heavy, but again, thank you very much for your time. This presentation is already posted on our website. And again, this Zoom meeting is being recorded. So if you want to go back and review, you can, and hopefully we'll see you at 12:45 at the resource fair. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you so much, Stephen. Obviously, I think what we've learned from Stephen's presentation is that he is a guru of all things financial, and that financial aid and fellowships and all this funding piece is super complicated. So I want you to hearken back to what Sloan said earlier, which is point number 2, ask questions and ask questions often. I know that a lot of it may have you guys running in different directions, but start somewhere. Ask your graduate program coordinator, ask at graduate studies, ask SISS, ask the registrar's office, and hopefully the people that you talk to will either have the answers or they will have a good idea of who might have those answers for you. A couple of real quick things that I want to announce before we send you out on a break. First off, unfortunately, our Otter AI transcribing service is down for the live transcription, but it will be available afterwards. So you can get that transcript once we post the link to the Zoom webinar. Secondly, we got a lot of questions about the virtual resource fair links. I know we've been plugging it. Hey, you should be available because you can talk to our financial services team later on. That email will go out within an hour. So 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time is when it is set to trigger. So you can start checking your emails about an hour from now. Also, congratulations, we had 1,000 attendees there. That was awesome. So we have a lot of people who are tuning in, and hopefully you guys feel like you are getting a lot of good content. And then last but not least, as Stephen said, those slides, which had a ton of content, those are available for you guys. They should be on our website within the next 48 hours. We will make sure that you can continue to get access to them, and all the hyperlinks that were on there should work as well. So now that I have prepared you with all of that good information and you have just absorbed a ton of financial things from Stephen, we're going to encourage you guys to get up, stretch, get some caffeine back in you, and just have a little bit of time to let all of that percolate before we come back. So we're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. So right now I have 10:07 on my clock, so I will be back right around 10:15 to round you all up, and then we will get started with our next presentation. We'll see you in just a little bit, guys. Well, hello. Welcome back. I am a minute early, so don't freak out if you're in the kitchen and you're finishing microwaving that cup of coffee, or if you are just coming out of another room because you had to talk to someone other than me and Stephen. That's okay. I'm just going to yammer for just a moment, and we're going to give people time to come on back in. Normally, in a large in-person setting, I would tell cheesy jokes. I really love jokes that are geared at kids that are like my own kids' age. I'm a second grader. So I will share one of my favorites with you, and then we will talk about things that are far more intellectual than this. One of my favorite jokes for kids. What is blue and not heavy? And the answer is light blue. Yeah, see, that's how much of a nerd I am. Okay, let's make a complete 180 reversal there. And we're actually going to move into our next panel. And this one is actually from our Grad Pathways Institute. Now, Grad Pathways is an amazing resource that we have here on campus because it really is devoted toward professional development for current students. And then as you become an alumni and move into your life, these are things that can really help set you up as you make that transition and journey out. So I'm going to introduce the two folks that are really truly responsible for Grad Pathways and all the amazing things that we have right now. Our director, Dr. Teresa Dillinger, and our assistant director, Dr. David Blancha. So I invite them to please take it away.
Hi, I'm Teresa Dillinger, and I'm the director of the Grad Pathways Institute for Professional Development and Graduate Studies here at UC Davis. I'm glad to welcome you here today to the graduate student orientation, and I only wish that it could be in person so that we could all meet each other. In any case, we're going to talk today about some professional development opportunities that are available to you both virtually and when you arrive in person. These opportunities will help you be successful as a graduate student and in your chosen career path. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As a new graduate student, we suggest that you be proactive in your professional development. And that's really the focus of our talk today as we talk about using Grad Pathways and partner resources to really prepare to be successful as a student and in your career, as mentioned. Before we get into the more content, I just want to mention that we encourage you to use the question and answer tool in the webinar on your dashboard. So you can drop questions into the tool, and David and I will be monitoring that as we go along in the presentation, and we'll be answering those in real time. We encourage you not to use the chat feature for this purpose because that tends to scroll by too quickly. So feel free to drop those questions in, and as I said, we'll go ahead and answer those. First, I just want to talk a bit about our workshop objectives. So we want to introduce the resources that will help ensure success in graduate school and beyond. So in other words, not just those resources that will help you be successful now, but they'll actually help you build towards the career that you're seeking, whether that career be in academia or in industry, nonprofit, government, what have you. We'll also identify ways to build skills and competencies and accordingly your career while you're still in graduate school. So being intentional about your next steps. We also really encourage you to use these resources throughout your graduate school experience. One thing I wanted to mention is that the Grad Pathways Institute is supported by the candidacy fees you pay when you finish graduate school. So at the very end, there'll be like around $100 fee as you're filing and getting ready to finish. And that fee actually pays for everything you've already used. And then some, because the resources you're able to use all the way along. So we encourage you to do that and make the most of these opportunities. And then finally, we'll explore those opportunities unique to UC Davis. So David and I belong to a group of folks that do career and professional development advising for graduate students across the nation and in Canada. So we're aware of the resources available at other institutions, and we have much more than many do. So we encourage you to take this opportunity to engage in these experiences that are really unique to your graduate school training and you may not encounter as you move out of graduate school. So next I'm going to turn over to David to talk about professional development.
Good morning, everyone. This is David Blancha, the Assistant Director for the GPI. When you think about your professional development, we want to make sure you think about it in broad and comprehensive terms. So this means thinking not just about your next career step. I know it's day one, but it's always good to be looking ahead. But also thinking about how you can build the skills, experiences, and track record that'll be necessary not just for you to succeed in your next step of your life, but also to maximize the opportunities that will be available to you. With that in mind, we've separated all of our offerings and support into 8 core competencies. Starting with success and socialization, we want to make sure that you have everything you need to be successful here at UC Davis in your program as you become socialized to the norms of your field. Whether it's preparing to pass your qualifying exams, choosing a lab, choosing a major advisor, or even just finding support in performing well and feeling comfortable at academic conferences, preparing papers, and other ways of immersing yourself in the academic community, GPI is here to help. We also have a number of competency areas that are a lot more straightforward. For example, writing and publishing, presentation skills, and teaching and mentoring. In all of these areas, we partner with organizations across campus to make sure you're getting the support that you need. We all know that universities are often set up to be transparent and easy to navigate, right? Well, maybe if you're an undergrad. But for graduate students, it can be difficult to know what services you have access to, and it can be easy to be tricked into thinking that they don't exist. But we make sure that you have comprehensive writing and publishing support, presentation skills preparation, and teaching and mentoring training to make sure that you can succeed in your TA positions and in any future career path. Next up, we support leadership and management training, and I really encourage you to think about this early and often. No matter where you end up in your chosen career path, you're going to need to be able to work with others, supervising them in an academic, business, or other capacity. And oftentimes, you'll find that a lot of leadership and management training can be extremely expensive and time-consuming when you leave the university. So I encourage everyone to explore this competency while you're here, even if you may not be thinking of starting a business today or taking a management position today. If this is ever something you see as part of your future, it's a great time to start thinking about it now and building those baseline skills while they're accessible here at UC Davis. We also provide support in professionalism and ethics. And this isn't just about adhering to university policy, and it's certainly not about understanding the fine details of the law, but rather about understanding professional standards and ethical conduct and how to make sure that you are doing not just great work, but good work as well. Next, career management support for graduate students at UC Davis. By partnering with the Internship and Career Center, we make sure that you have access to one-on-one advising, career fairs, and all sorts of opportunities no matter what your chosen career path may be. In fact, we know that many graduate students will change their anticipated career path several times during their time here at UC Davis. And no matter what you choose or what direction your interests and research takes you, we want to make sure you have comprehensive support for any career path and want to make sure that you have as many options available to you when you leave as you need. And last but not least, I want to talk about the wellness and life balance competency, because this is an area that we are very devoted to, even though you might not always think of it as a core part of professional development. But all of these other competencies are going to suffer if you are not well. This is not just about mental health and counseling support. This is also about supporting you in just making your life make sense, whether that's guided meditation, yoga, budgeting, nutrition, recreation, and other physical activity. The GPI is here to help and support you in finding opportunities to get whatever wellness support you need to make sure that you're thriving in all areas of your life. And in all of these competency areas, we want to make sure that we have programming and support that makes sense for you. We tend to break things down into these 4 different categories, although we're always looking for new formats and ideas. So this includes introductory workshops. Perhaps you are just kind of dipping your toe into a subject and you want to kind of absorb information in a slightly more passive way. We have in-depth courses, seminars, symposia for when you really want to get hands-on and you want to do a deeper dive into one or more areas. We have individual advising when confidentiality is a concern, or when you realize that your questions are very specific to your personal situation. And we have community building activities. We strive really hard to create communities of graduate students so that you can understand that as isolating as graduate research can be, you are not alone, and many of your concerns are shared by people around you, and you can take advantage of that hive mind, not just for social support, but also just to produce better outcomes for you and your cohort. Now, I know there's been a lot of information thrown at you today, and probably the last thing that you really want to be remembering or memorizing is our full taxonomy of resources. So what I really want you to take away is just the breadth of our resources and the type of support that you should know exists here at UC Davis, because it's not the same for graduate students everywhere. And I want to make sure you feel comfortable reaching out to us with your personal needs. So no matter what you take away from this presentation today, know that you can always reach out to us as a starting point to find access to whatever resources you want. But to hopefully make things a little more concrete, we've prepared a couple stories for you to hear how students can take advantage of the wide range of GPI resources.
Hi, my name is Desta. I always enjoy and excel at my engineering studies as an undergraduate. I decided to obtain my PhD in biomedical engineering with the goal of becoming a professor. Once I arrived at UC Davis, I was surprised to find that the PhD program was different than I had anticipated, with greater focus on research and writing rather than coursework, which had been my strength. I realized that I needed greater mentorship, but was uncertain on how to have these conversations or even what I might expect from this role. I attended a grad pathways workshop on getting mentor in graduate school to better understand how I could tap this relationship with my new major professor. This also allowed me to meet one of the graduate studies diversity officers, Josephine Moreno, who taught the workshop. Since I was the first in my family to attend a university, and as a woman of color, I hadn't seen many role models I could identify with. I decided to meet with the diversity officer, Devin Horton, who specializes in STEM fields for additional guidance. I told Devin that I planned to pursue a faculty career, and she encouraged me to build my teaching training by taking workshops from the Center for Educational Effectiveness, which also helped me become a better TA. Later in my graduate career, I participated in the Professors for the Future program, a one-year program that allowed me to learn more about faculty careers and build skills through a project I created in the program to teach other graduate students how to be better mentors. I continue to keep in contact with the diversity officers, Josephine and Devin, and met with a career advisor from the Internship and Career Center, and they also encouraged me to attend the Liberal Arts Diversity Officer event, which features careers in liberal arts colleges, something that I knew very little about. After attending, I realized that most of these institutions did not have biomedical engineering degrees, but they needed faculty members who could teach math and science. I shared my goal of teaching at a liberal arts college with my PI. This additional knowledge helped my PI craft stronger letters of recommendation for me that focus on my teaching skills. Upon completion of the PhD, I started as an assistant professor at Harvey Mudd College.
Next, let's hear from another hypothetical student, Chris.
I was excelling at my coursework in the first 2 years of my PhD. I got along well with my peers, but I started to feel like everyone else was more excited about research than I was. I enjoyed it well enough, but didn't seem to have the same enthusiasm, and found myself steering conversations away from discussions about what my research focus would be. I learned about Imagine PhD and Versatile PhD at the Professional Development Fair, and used the online tools to read about a variety of careers, but everything had different pros and cons. I was worried to bring this up with my major advisor and straightforwardly pass my QEs without ever mentioning it. Over the next couple years, uncertainty was starting to affect my mood, and it made me anxious when I ran into other members of my cohort. I decided to make an appointment with a counselor to consult a neutral party. I decided I needed to share my ambivalence with my major professor, who responded that they thought I had a bright future in the academy, but they would support whatever I decided to do if they could. I spoke with a career advisor at the ICC and returned to Versatile PhD to do more research. This time, I saw a forum entry about working on natural language processing in a small tech startup. I didn't know what NLP was exactly, but it sounded interesting enough to fall into a Wikipedia research hole. Since this felt like a direction worth exploring, I ended up doing 3 things. First, I scheduled a CEE presentation skills consultation to practice staying clear between academic linguistics jargon and tech jargon. Second, I realized that even if I wasn't primarily a coder, I would need some basic understanding of what coworkers were doing. So I attended workshops at the Data Science Initiative for R and SQL introductions. And thirdly, since the small startup environment appealed to me, I applied for Leaders for the Future to develop entrepreneurial and business skills. In focusing considerable time on these additional trainings, however, I realized that I was falling behind on dissertation writing. I met with a writing fellow to recommit to my writing goals and joined a dissertation writing support group to hold myself accountable. After graduating, I found a position in language engineering at Textio in Seattle.
So hopefully those vignettes gave you some good ideas of opportunities that you might want to pursue. As you heard, there are a lot of opportunities. Part of the challenge is figuring out where those fit into your graduate program and when you would do them. So you'll want to be intentional about when you take advantage of these opportunities. Of course, there are workshops every quarter, but there are some activities like the Professors for the Future and the Leaders for the Future programs where you would really need to think about when those fit into your program in your year. So moving on from that, I just want to mention some upcoming events. The first that I want to mention is our launch week for the Grad Pathways Institute. We're really excited about this opportunity to share virtual events with you. We would have loved to have done that in person, but we've got some great plans going forward. So there will be prizes and other activities, so please join us that week, October 12th through the 16th, and we'll be having more information about that in the coming weeks. Another event I want to mention is a workshop where we have a guest speaker, Hugh Kearns, who joins us from Australia to give his popular workshop, The 7 Secrets of Highly Successful PhDs and Master's Students. We've gotten a lot of praise from students about this workshop because it really helps you understand how to be successful in graduate school and gives you some tips and tricks of what to do in terms of engaging with your advisor, planning your program, even around writing and how to be successful at writing as a graduate student, and how to manage multiple priorities in a graduate program. So I highly recommend this. This will be on Thursday, October 15th from 2 to 4 p.m. online, and so we hope you will join us virtually that afternoon. Finally, I want to talk about the Graduate Center at Walker Hall. This new center is opening in January, this coming January 2021, and there will be a lot of opportunities in Walker Hall, especially as these relate to professional development. There'll be a quiet writing room with extended hours so you can come and work on your writing. There will be writing consultants, so these will be peer consultants who can work with you on your writing and answer questions you may have in that regard. We will also have career advising there. There will be small meeting rooms available to you to take your qualifying exams. There's also a student parent study lounge, and there'll be a lot of social activities that occur in the Graduate Student Commons. There will also be representatives from the Graduate Student Association and the Postdoctoral Scholars Association on site, in addition to all of the graduate studies staff who are there to support you and help ensure your success. So we look forward to seeing you in Walker Hall and for you being the first class that will be able to take advantage of this brand new space. Information about Grad Pathways and our partners' activities. Just want to mention that these are some of the ways to do that. The first is our webpage. So we have a simple URL. It's just gradpathways.ucdavis.edu, all lowercase. And on our website, which is brand new and completely revamped from our old site, it's really focused on the 8 core competencies that David previously mentioned. There are the self-assessments on each of the competency pages so that you can evaluate your own skills and interests that you are trying to build in graduate school, and to think about whether you'll get those in your graduate program or whether you'll need to be intentional about seeking those out through some of our programs or our partners programs. So please do visit the website. There's far more in there than we could cover in this short amount of time that we're talking with you today. Please also, when you're on the site, visit our calendar of events. So we have all kinds of events planned for fall quarter, but the calendar's not complete yet, so there will be more information that will be available as we in the coming weeks here as we move forward. And then as we get through fall quarter, the winter quarter events will start appearing. So have a look at that. You can sort by competency, so you can actually select and print out lists of which activities you want to do, and you can register online there for all of our virtual activities through Grad Pathways. And then we also do provide information through an email listserv. So you will get a weekly newsletter about Grad Pathways events and our partner events. So you will be informed about those. So please have a look and keep an eye out for that so you'll have the latest information. Well, you've heard from us about all the activities and opportunities that are available to you. And as mentioned, there are many more that we didn't have the time to cover, but we hope you'll explore. Now we'd like to know what you plan to do, what your next steps are. So let's take a couple minutes to do a quick Zoom poll and tell us, do you plan to attend the Grad Pathways launch week? Are you going to sign up for the 7 Secrets of Success workshop? Will you visit the new Graduate Center when it opens? How about talking with your professor? We hope you do, and think about creating an individual professional development plan that maps out when you're going to do some of these professional development activities. Will you visit the Grad Pathways website to explore more options? Let us know what you have in mind, and we're happy to hear what you plan to do. And finally, we just want to let you know how you can contact us. So hopefully David and I were able to answer some of your questions in the question and answer feature of this webinar, but we imagine that you're going to have many more. So please feel free to email us at gpi@ucdavis.edu. And just as a reminder, again, your team for professional development and graduate studies, myself, Teresa Dillinger, David Blancha, who's the assistant director, and then Olga Garzon Lopez, who is our administrative analyst. We are all excited to one day get to meet you, and hopefully you'll visit us in Walker Hall and stop in and say hello. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Well, thank you so much to Teresa and David. And again, I think that them putting all of their contact information there at the end is a great thing, because right now you might be thinking about, oh my gosh, how do I get started? What do I do on day one? But you're quickly going to need to transition into, what do I need to do for the rest of my grad career? And then what do I do once I earn my advanced degree? How can I set myself up to be successful? So you're going to want to touch base with David and Teresa pretty soon here, so that you can kind of get some good ideas from them and do some longer term thinking. Also, some of the things that they've brought up might be things that you would want to take to an academic advisor. Well, the very next thing that we have coming up is our panel for advising and mentoring. So we've put together a crack team of professionals here at UC Davis. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Brad Wolf, who's one of our senior academic advisors here at Graduate Studies. He will tell you about all of these wonderful people and how they can help you with a lot of the things you're going to need to get you through your academics and your mental well-being here at Davis. Brad?
All right, thanks, Laura. Hello to everybody again. So as Laura said, I am a senior academic advisor in graduate studies for the physical, agricultural, and environmental sciences and mathematics areas graduate programs. I would like to reintroduce Slán Ehrol. Well, nope, sorry, moving on again. I tried, Slán, our graduate student advisor for the Dean and Chancellor. Associate Dean Ellen Hartigan O'Connor, the Associate Dean for Graduate Students and Postdoc Scholars. Devin Horton, who was mentioned in an earlier session, our graduate diversity offer for the science, technology, engineering, and math areas. And Dr. Bayan Chen, psychologist for graduate students with student health and counseling services. So welcome to our panel. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bayan Chen first to present some of her slides. And then, as I mentioned, we will have some question and answer sessions. I've been helping answer the questions this morning. And so we'll talk a little bit about advising and mentoring from our perspectives and resources that we can provide you. But I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bayan Chen right now.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
And Bayan, go ahead and start sharing your screen. I think that you've got access to do that for your videos.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. I would like to take a few minutes to share with you the counseling and mental health resources that's available for you on campus or off campus. And first of all, Student Health Counseling Services offers free and confidential counseling services for all registered students, free of charge. But due to the COVID-19, we currently are providing telemental health, which means we provide counseling services either via phone or video conferencing. And there's a HIPAA compliant platform that you can use, and that's free of charge, but you do need to set up. And you can schedule appointments, either schedule online via health e-message, or you can call 530-752-0871 to schedule an appointment. And it's very easy, convenient. And we also provide group counseling service, and that's again free of charge. And the group counseling usually are small group, 6 to 8 students typically. And you can attend group counseling services. At this time, there's no limited session that you can attend group counseling services. So I highly encourage grad students to take advantage of these services, even though it's a virtual online, but however, it's a great way for you to connect with other grad students. I saw some of the questions earlier about connecting, how to meet other people, and group counseling might be one of the ways for you to meet other students, although not socially, it's for counseling and support mental health. And I also want to highlight a program that we provide. It's a CAM program, Community Advising Network. This is a group of my colleagues who are connected with several partner units on campus. And they are very familiar with specific student communities, and a lot of students feel comfortable accessing this service. And these are the list of my colleagues within the CAM team. And you can email them or call them to schedule appointments, either a consultation appointment or counseling appointments. And I know another acronym here, and but you can, once you are here longer, you know what all those acronym offices are. And I also wanted to share the mental health advocacy specialist service, because I'm aware some of you are not in Davis, or you, even though if you are in Davis, but you would like to get a longer term counseling service from off-campus provider, our in-house specialist, they can help you find a provider in the community. And again, you can schedule appointment online or call to schedule appointment with in-house. And I also want to share the psychiatric service. Some of you may be taking medications, and if you need medication, you certainly can continue to work with your previous provider. But if you would like to get a psychiatric service here, you do need to get a referral to see our psychiatrist. Because the limited service available, you cannot just call and say you want to schedule an appointment with a psychiatrist. There is a charge for psychiatric service. It's a $30 specialty care visit. But I will also share psychiatric service off campus in a minute, but this is on campus psychiatric service. And there are crisis resources available also through either student health counseling services or with a phone line. If you call 530-752-0871 during office hours between 9 and 4:30, Monday through Friday, you can request a crisis consultation services. However, this is not an emergency room kind of services. So if you are in emergency situation, you can visit emergency room at the Sutter Davis if you are in Davis. But if you are outside Davis, we suggest you to contact the ER in your local area. But if you are in a crisis situation, you need to talk to someone soon, you can call our office during office hour and request crisis consultation. But if after office hour, you can call that same phone number and follow the prompt to speak with someone over the phone. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including weekends and holidays. And we are aware that many of us now use the text messages comfortably. If you would like to text someone to talk with someone via text for a crisis support, you can text relate to 741-741 and someone will respond to you via text message. And the ship insurance information, I'm aware I saw some of the questions earlier related to ship insurance questions. And what I will focus on is a ship related to counseling services. I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with all the detailed information related to medical services for ship. In terms of ship coverage for counseling services, there's a $5 copay per visit for counseling or psychiatry care for network providers. And if you have questions, detailed questions about ship coverage or the fees, things like that, you can call 530-752-6055 to the ship office or email insurance@shcs.ucdavis.edu to have your questions answered. And I also want to quickly highlight how to search for ship providers. As some of you are not currently in Davis and you may want to use a ship service in your local area. And these are the steps for you to search providers for ship. Network providers. And certainly if you are in Davis, you want to use a ship, you can use the same steps to find providers. That will be a ship network provider. And I want to also mention about the copay. Counseling service, the copay counseling service, you can start from the very beginning. You don't have to meet the deductible first before you pay the copay, and which is a very, very good coverage. And another resource particularly will be very helpful for those of you who are not in California, in the state of California, but however you are reside in United States. It's Life Health Online. These are off-campus providers, but they are throughout the country in the United States. However, most of me, like including me or my colleagues, we are licensed in the state of California. So due to the law regulations, I am not allowed, or we are not allowed to provide services for people who are physically outside the state of California. So Life Health Online is a great resource if you are out of the state. And we offer a coupon code for all students. So with the coupon code, your Life Health Online visit will be free of charge. And again, you do need to set up an account. And these are the address, the website address that you can check out for the detailed information for the Life Health Online. So in summary, if you are looking for long-term counseling, we encourage you to either find a ship provider or you can use Life Health Online. And again, MHAS are available to help you find a community provider. Even if you have a private insurance, we can help you find community provider. However, you do need to contact your private insurance for the coverage, reimbursement, copay, that type of thing, if you want to use your private insurance. And these are the new resources available for our students this year. It's the mental and medical health care funds. So these funds are specifically designed to support students who cannot afford health care. So there are two funds. One is for SHIP students, and another healthcare fund is for our non-SHIP students. Although I believe most of grad students have a SHIP, but however, we do have some grad students who do not have SHIP insurance. So if you have financial concern for seeking healthcare, please check out our website and apply for these healthcare funds. So these are all my slides. Then I will transfer back to Brad Wolf.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Bayan. So we did have, there were 2 questions that came in that I do think you answered already. And I'm going to invite the panelists to go ahead and unmute yourselves and turn your cameras back on. But I just wanted to reiterate, you know, on the services that SHCS provides in terms of the one-on-one counseling. You know, a lot of that is covered by the SHIP insurance, and that SHCS can also refer to psychiatrists in the community as well. So we are, you know, those are 2 things I think that questions that came up. Can counseling services refer to a SHIP-covered psychologist or psychiatrist? And I'll just let you clarify on that real quick, Bayan, but there is a lot of referrals that happens from your office to my understanding and knowledge. You're muted though, Bayan.
So I'm reviewing the questions here at the Q&A too. SHIP providers, some SHIP providers may be outside of California also, or even in other countries. But you can search online, follow the steps that are listed on the slide to find a provider in the area that you desire. Although, even though more likely there will be more providers in the state of California, but there are providers outside the state of California. But I'm sorry, what's another question also? Because I'm looking through the Q&A.
Yeah, no, are there limited amounts of one-on-one questions or one-on-one counseling sessions that are free of charge, or are all counseling services free?
At this time, at the Student Health and Counseling Services, we do not provide in-person one-on-one counseling service. But however, we do provide telemental health one-on-one, that's free of charge. And Student Health Counseling Services provides a short-term counseling service. Therefore, there are limited sessions. But however, we are not very rigid in terms of, say, everyone gets 3 sessions only. We want to do the best we can to support grad students. However, we provide within the short-term frame because everyone's situation is different. If we are too rigid, it may not be most helpful for our students. But you know, we try to do what we can, but it's within the short-term model.
And I think that's a really excellent point. Thank you, Bayan, or Dr. Chen. That's a really excellent point for this group that's that we've gathered here today for everybody. We're all here to help you all, and in trying to think about advising and mentoring, all of us are here as a resource for you. We like to talk about building your network of mentorship and advising and support. And so we know, all of us know that this next academic year is going to provide us some really interesting challenges and opportunities to overcome these challenges and develop new skills on how we develop that resilience. And so I just wanted to throw it out to the panel to start off with. What's some advice that you might have for our incoming students on how to do well this first quarter? What do they need to know? What's that advice to get us started off with? I'm going to pick on Sloan first.
Thanks, Brad. I think my advice would be for folks to reach out to their cohort. You know, you're not alone in that you're starting the first year here at UC Davis. And so there are other folks in your cohort that you can reach out to and start building a network first with them before you sort of start to spread out throughout your program. I would say join as many of the Zoom social hours that are available. Your programs might be arranging some. The GSA, the Graduate Student Association, might be putting some together. So try to attend as many of those as possible so that you can get to know some of the students on campus and start feeling comfortable here.
Awesome.
So I'm going to add to that, if that's all right. In addition to Sloan's excellent suggestions about building a network with fellow graduate students in your program, and that can be your cohort. It can also be students more advanced in your program who will have good ideas for thinking a little bit more long-term, and then reaching out to affinity groups or the folks on campus to help you kind of build an intellectual and social life. But what I'd add to that are faculty. So one of the main real changes from being an undergrad to being a graduate student is your relationships with faculty come in courses, but they also come through a lot of independent projects. If you're going to be writing a thesis or PhD dissertation, establishing a relationship with research mentors is really crucial and is something to get a start on. This can mean going to office hours, asking them about lab meetings, asking them about reading groups that they may have organized, but to kind of begin to move and share ideas in an intellectual community, you really want to make those connections with faculty. And it's a little different this year. Normally, you might stop by their office, you might run into them coming out of a class. You're going to need to be more proactive this year in getting to know your faculty. And fellow grad students can have great ideas, as can the grad program staff. So you've probably all already corresponded with the graduate program coordinator, who's the staff person, who can also give you good advice on who answers their email quickly, who's holding regular office hours, that kind of information, so you can begin to make those connections with faculty.
Hi, everyone. I just want to second Ellen's point about making connections with faculty. If you are a STEM student, I think this would be a really good time to have a conversation with your faculty mentor about what is expected of you, because it's not obvious to you, and it probably isn't obvious to them that you don't know. And much like Ellen said, you will have to be much more proactive this go around than you have been in the past. And so I'd encourage you to start that earlier. If you're a student who is in humanities, art, social sciences, cultural studies, education, or in any program that doesn't require you to do rotations or work with faculty right when you get there, I encourage you to speak with advanced students about how to go about finding a faculty person. Often that will include taking their courses, like Ellen mentioned, seeing if they have reading groups, do they have journal clubs, those kinds of things. But you want to figure that out now so that you don't feel so pressured when it comes time to actually make the decision. What you want to avoid doing, I mean, times are tough and it is really difficult to plan everything out. But if you can just plan little things out now, they will have a really big impact later, because you don't want to have to decide like 3/4 of the way into your rotation that you don't think you've been doing what it is that your mentor expected of you, and now you are afraid to go and talk to them, and so now you're hiding out, nobody can find you because you're afraid and maybe a little bit embarrassed. So try and have these conversations while the going is good, so that in the event that you come up against challenges, which you will, because that's just part of the process, that you're not having to make really important decisions in the space of a challenge.
I would also add, I would also encourage, grad students to also connect with other grad students who are outside your immediate program. And some of the things may be difficult or not as comfortable to right away share with other grad students in your program or faculty. And it's very good for you to share with other grad students outside of your program to help you to kind of get a feel and then have some support resources outside your immediate community.
And that's actually a really great point. We heard from Sloan this morning. She introduced Jillian, and Jonathan was here also as the GSA president. Those are two really excellent resources for graduate students to reach out to. They work very closely with the people in our office, but they have a different relationship and a different way of connecting with the graduate students that, we're all here. We all care about students. We all care about you. We're all interacting via cameras. So there's a little bit of, that barrier, but we're all here to try to support you as best we can. And reaching out to them is a great way to get in contact with the right people in our office if you don't know in your program who to go to. Before I joined graduate studies, I was the graduate program coordinator in chemistry. And that staff person is really a great resource for all of those main questions. And if you haven't heard from them about orientation, it's probably coming this week or sometime next week of trying to figure out and get that information out to you all. So I would hold tight or check your emails, check your UC Davis emails if you haven't been, for that information, because it's going to be really important on how you're connecting inside your program with both the students, the staff, and the faculty. We're getting a lot of great questions in here, a lot of questions in the Q&A about SHIP and health insurance. Unfortunately, we are not experts on that. So the information that Bayan provided is going to be excellent to go look at that. And again, we'll have the slides available in the next 48 hours for you to go look at for information and to get answers to those questions. If you have any questions regarding academic advising or mentoring, please feel free to throw those into the chat. We're going to be answering those. We do have some other questions that we can talk about. And Ellen, I feel like this is going to be the question for you right now. Let's talk about, in terms of advising and academic accommodations, what do we have in place for students to be successful academically during this lovely COVID-19 shared experience that we've got?
So yes, thanks, Brad. As we always say, the grad school is difficult. It's one of the most kind of intellectually and socially engaging times, but it also has a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of uncertainty, and that makes it difficult for everyone. Added to that is the quarter system. So some of you are familiar with it. You're accustomed to the fact that a class can be over in 10 weeks and you're done. Many of you are not. I had a semester system as an undergraduate and a grad student, and only as a faculty member began to adjust to the quarter system. It moves incredibly fast. A couple weeks go by, you have a cold, you're dealing with something, and 20% of the class is gone. This can come as a real shock to people. And so I kind of wanted to give everyone a heads up about that and reiterate the idea that the more you do at the beginning in advance, the less likely you are to run into trouble later on. So in the case of a course you're taking, making sure you understand the syllabus and following up right away with faculty members about longer term projects, beginning to calendar that out, make plans for how you're going to get first drafts looked at, how you're going to do completion of projects in such a short time frame. Now, many folks will find that they need additional accommodations. So, the first is always to talk directly to the faculty member if you have a question about a deadline, or if you've fallen behind. The first person always to talk to in a course, for example, is to talk to your faculty, is to talk to the professor of the course. If you're doing some research, it's to talk to the person who's supervising the research. But say you come across an unexpected health challenge, mental health challenge, physical health challenge, housing challenge. Say you come to graduate school and you are diagnosed with a learning disability that you didn't know that you had prior to graduate school. Lots of unexpected things happen. And again, I think part of our message over and over again in this session is to remind you, you're not alone. You're not the only student who's faced this, and as a result, the university has resources available to you. If you're in a situation where you need additional academic support, there are resources in tutoring, there are resources in language support, there are other kinds of units on campus that can help you get access to that. You can get help with your writing. Many of us face a real challenge in coming up to speed with graduate level writing, particularly if our undergraduate degree did not include a lot. So these are available to you. If you discover that you have a health crisis, you can work with your graduate program coordinator, and you can also work with the Office of Student Services to help you navigate, okay, I've been in the hospital for 3 weeks. How do I come back to class? I need to go on a medical leave. How do I do that? All of these things are available, and we can help you with that. If you discover, oh, I have a learning disability that was not diagnosed, but there had to be a reason why I had so much difficulty getting through 3 books a week in my graduate class, we have the Student Disability Services Center who work directly with you and any of a diagnosing medical professional to help you work on accommodations with your faculty and with your program. So these are just some of the kinds of examples of unexpected things that can come up. don't be shy. Don't worry that we aren't prepared to hear it and to help you, because our goal at UC Davis is to help you reach your academic goals, achieve your degree, and we all recognize that there are things that come up that were unexpected in the meantime.
So thank you, Ellen. We had some more scenarios planned, but in the interest of trying to maintain time, I'm going to ask all of our panelists to stay on, and I think I'm going to let Laura come back in, but I believe that we're going to transition into the open Q&A session now. I'm stealing, I think, Laura's intro, sorry, not sorry. But we have some great questions. So the panel is going to stay on. We'll be here to answer some questions, and yeah, and then everybody else that's presented today is also here for questions as well.
Right, so as Brad alluded, this is kind of like the buffet of question and answer time. We've been collecting a lot of the questions and answers that have been coming in throughout the course of this webinar. We've been answering as many as we can, but we have pulled some out that we really wanted to make sure we highlighted and gave folks on this panel the ability to answer. So in addition to our academic and mental health folks that we just heard from, we're pulling back in our financial support unit. So Stephen will be back on. We've got some of those advocates for students. Jonathan Minnick is joining us again, both David and Teresa from the Grad Pathways Institute. So please feel free to pop questions in. We will try and pull them out. We'll either answer them within the question and answer, or we'll try and read them. But I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. And actually, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and start with maybe this very top one. It says, okay, so for buy-in, this is actually one for you. Are there a limited amount of one-on-one counseling sessions that are free of charge, or are all counseling services free for students?
Yes, there are limited short-term counseling services free of charge for students at this time for tailored mental health, but there are no in-person one-on-one counseling service provided during pandemic.
Okay, great. So if you have additional questions beyond that, I would recommend that you guys reach out to Buy-In and her colleagues as well, because you might have some things that are maybe a little bit more personal. So feel free to reach out as well if we don't answer your question completely, guys. The next question is actually, where can I get the latest information on campus operations and the COVID-19 pandemic? And someone has done a really nice job of just typing up the answer. So I'm going to go ahead and handle this one. I'm just going to read it. It says that we basically have Campus Ready, which is campusready.ucdavis.edu, which is a website that campus hosts and gives a lot of the different updates that are on there. Also, there will be a webinar that's being held for incoming graduate students just 2 days from now. So on Wednesday of this week, September 23rd, there will be a webinar to answer a lot of your questions as far as returning to campus. Now, does anyone else have some more information that wasn't typed in there that they want to add on to that? Excellent. I like it when I feel like I know something, even though I'm just reading off a piece of paper. All right, the next one, actually, what sort of resources are available to graduate students who have families, whether it's a spouse or children that they're supporting? Jonathan, do we have anything that the GSA helps with, or SLUND? Are there any programs that are maybe supported for students on your end?
The GSA directly doesn't do anything for student parents at this point in time, but we've coordinated, in the spring quarter, we coordinated with the Aggie Compass Basic Needs Center to provide students with dependents some extra funding. I know that they were eligible when the CARES Act funding came through, that they were able to get extra money for their dependents. The Aggie Compass was also able to help them through that as well, and I think that support is continuing. So any students with dependents should probably reach out to the Compass if they're feeling any sort of basic needs stress, whether that's housing, financial, food, mental health, any of that stuff. The Aggie Compass is an excellent resource for that.
And
Yeah.
UC Davis does have a child care program to help student parents. So just Google UC Davis child care program, and there are a couple funding sources to help you with, paying for child care while you're in grad school.
And I'll just add that the student parent group is also hosting a Zoom session during the resource fair. So if you have any more specific questions, make sure you attend that session, and they're able to sort of help guide you. And I know they've put together, the Women's Resource Center has put together a great document that is directed specifically towards student parents, and we may be able to share that with you all. So please go to that session for any other questions that you have about that topic.
Yeah, right, guys. So Aggie Compass and the CARES and all of that are part of what will be available at that virtual resource fair. I just checked on it. The mailing is currently compiling, so within the next 5 or 10 minutes, you guys should get that email in your inbox with all of those Zoom links and times as well. I'll keep checking on that as we go through this Q&A. While we had Solange and Jonathan speaking, I'm actually going to kick another one right over to you, because the question is, what is the difference between the Graduate Student Association and the Graduate Student Advisor to the Dean and Chancellor? And then what other sort of organizations or individuals advocate for graduate student needs?
Son, do you want to start? I think your position fits nicely with this whole graduate student orientation, and I'll kind of follow up with what we do.
Yeah, so the Graduate Student Advisor to the Dean and the Chancellor is directly with students. So the position is here to advocate for student interests. And so I have sort of a direct line to the Dean of Grad Studies to advocate on behalf of your interests, as well as the Chancellor. And really, if folks have questions, any sort of questions, and about employment, about mentoring and advising, maybe they're having health crisis, whatever it is, I would encourage them to reach out to the GSADC. And maybe we don't, I or Jillian Moise, who is the incoming GSADC, maybe we don't have the answer, but we can certainly help point you to a resource or to somebody within grad studies who may be able to help. And then I'll go ahead and let Jonathan talk a little bit more specifically about the GSA and what they do.
Yeah, so Solange and her position has a spot on the GSA per se. They're an ex officio non-voting member of our executive committee. So we work together on a lot of things, and we're definitely not separate from one another. But the GSA is not specifically a part of graduate studies. We are a sort of an independent student governing body. So we are made up of representatives. We have an elected executive committee, but we often deal with similar issues that Solange is talking about. So we have discussions with administrators in graduate studies, as well as with the chancellors, to talk about funding or educational issues, research. If you're an international student, working on that. If you're an undocumented student, all those protections, any of those issues that a graduate student might encounter, you could either go through the GSA or through the GSADC. They do very similar types of work. The GSADC probably enjoys a little closer relationship with the administration, though the GSA also has a fantastic relationship with administrators too right now. So we generally like to work with each other. We find that we're more successful when we only get so many meetings per year. So it's really good to work with the GSADC and to plan out our monthly meetings with administrators, make sure that we're all on the same page, and that we're all arguing and fighting for the goodness of all graduate students. So the GSA definitely, it's a much larger organization. We have 330 representatives and an executive council of about 6 people, 6 to 8, I think, somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly, but don't hesitate to reach out to either of us, whichever you feel most comfortable with, or whoever is more accessible at the time. Just reach out to the GSADC or the GSA. Somebody will help find an answer. That's the key, is just to reach out and start that conversation, because we will work together to find a solution, or at least try.
And I'll just add, the GSA is actually made up of representatives from your program. And so if you have a graduate student association in your program, 2 of them are members of the GSA. And so We hear from the concerns directly from those programs, from the departments, and then Jonathan and I oftentimes team up and double tag those administrators to try to come up with solutions for you all.
Yes, and another important thing, I know part of the question was what other leaders are throughout campus. There's several other graduate student groups that are worth reaching out to. So if you're, try to find the GSA and the GSADC are not the only, people that do this type of thing. We also work really closely with union representatives to work on labor issues. So if you're a TA, and not always the GSA can handle some of these things. So you go to the union and work with them. And so we've enjoyed a really close relationship with the union, and we talk with them regularly and have meetings about planning, with fall instruction coming up and everything being remote. Are we making sure that our TAs are prepared and well supported? These conversations have been ongoing since March. And so, we've had fantastic results from these conversations, but there are a whole group of people to create this support group. And of course, we have just, a large cast of people that have even come up through the rankings. So, we have people from the GSA, their representatives who have, found a voice in student advocacy. And then we say, okay, come to this meeting with us, or we'd really like you here at this conversation. So it's, if you have a passion for this kind of thing and you want to help, we'd love to have your support, but also know that, there's not just 3 people working on this. There's quite a lot of people who are dedicated to your success and making sure that you feel safe and taken care of, and that you can, do your research, which is ultimately what you're here to do.
I don't want to take too much time for this question, but I'll just shout out one group on campus. The Chancellor's Graduate and Professional Student Advisory Board is also a great place if you're interested in advocacy, if you're interested in being part of the conversations that happen between student leaders and administration. I would encourage you all to apply to be part of that board. The applications are now open until I think the second or third week of school. So feel free to check that out. And if you go to the resource fair, the GSADC will be there, and we'll be talking a little bit more in detail about what that entails.
And my last contribution to this is just to point out that grad studies itself is an advocate for graduate students on campus. So we work with other divisions on campus, the Office of Research, Office of Financial Aid, Work Life. We're the ones who can help bring your concerns and your issues to these other parts of the campus and make sure that the graduate student experience and voice is heard as part of these larger campus initiatives. So in addition to all the wonderful people on this panel, you can also email directly your associate deans here in grad studies, and we will continue to work on these issues for you. We do want to hear from you.
Well, Ellen, that provides a beautiful segue to what I had selected for our next question, which is actually that it said there seem to be a lot of different people involved in advising. So the question was, what is the difference between a graduate advisor, a graduate program coordinator, a senior academic advisor, and then now your role as assistant or associate dean, apologize. So I think that Ellen and Brad might be really great to hop in on this one.
Sure, I can start off with that if you'd like, Ellen, and then we'll work our way up. So graduate advisor is a faculty member inside of each graduate program that is selected to serve as an academic mentor in each program. The graduate program coordinator, as we mentioned, is the staff person that does a lot of the administrative and coordination inside of each program. So, there's a lot of the behind the scenes running that they do. So preparing for orientation, for your applications. The graduate program coordinator touched every single one of your applications, just like Laura did. For your program, they did the review of each of the records and prepared it for those graduate advisors to be serving as a resource. They're the knowledge holders inside your program. They're the ones who are helping make sure that guidelines and program requirements are being met. And then the senior academic advisors, we work very closely with the graduate program coordinators in our specific areas to make sure that, if they're seeing students who are struggling or having academic issues, that we're here to support you and them in the program management. The senior academic advisors, we see all of your paperwork as well. We're one of the last people that you interact with when you leave the university, because we get to process, among other things, we get to process your filing, your thesis dissertations, your final exams, and we're the ones doing that last bit of processing. We also handle things like academic probation, the scary, not as much fun things, the academic probation, the time to degree, but we're here to try to make sure that that process is as clear as possible, as painless as academic probation can be, and really smooth out some of those issues that you might see. And then we work, the SAAs work very closely with Ellen, so I'll let her jump in and talk about what she does now too.
Yeah, so I often say to folks that as a faculty member, my job is to be a specialist, and as an associate dean, my job is to be a generalist, to try to understand a broad range of academic concerns that graduate students have, and to find, either by brainstorming with them or helping to connect them to other folks on campus, how to resolve whatever difficulties they've come into, and to go on to success. So an example of how this might work is, let's say you are working on a research project and the faculty member who's supervising you on the research project, you thought you were doing the right thing, then they got very frustrated with you and said you're doing it all wrong. You tried to clarify with them, but you feel like you're just having a real communication difficulty. The first person you might go to is your grad advisor. This is someone in your program who knows you, who knows the program, who knows the nature of the research that you're undertaking in a general way, right, as it's in their academic field, and knows the faculty member. They are likely able to say to you, well, I think when you said X, professor heard Y, let me meet with both of you to help try to smooth this over. Now, let's say that your conversation with the grad advisor didn't go that well. They don't know the situation well enough. They offered some suggestion and it didn't work out. Say you need perspective from outside of your program. That would be a time you could be in touch with me and say, I seem to be at an impasse. I really want to be successful in this research project that I'm working on. I've heard a lot of conflicting advice and I don't know where to go next. And I would meet with you and we would talk about different things to try, different folks to be in contact with. We would work through whatever difficulty that you're coming up against, so that you could go on and be successful. One of the things that we try to do in grad studies is to help students kind of manage the balance of power in their graduate programs. As graduate students, faculty have a lot of power over your academic career, and they use that power for good all the time. Sometimes students get anxious when they recognize that they're in this position, that someone has power over their academic career. And it's helpful to bring in another sympathetic faculty member. I'm a professor in the history department. I know what faculty members face, and we're able to help work through things with you. In some cases, there are more severe problems in your graduate program, and I can help you with that too. Reporting instances of discrimination, reporting instances of other kinds of academic misconduct. I can work with you on that too, and we can find confidential resources for you. So that's what I would add into the excellent summary that Brad gave.
Great. So obviously, you know, we started today talking about, we have a lot of resources and a lot of people who want to help you, and you seem to have a lot of questions about how do I find those people. So we're actually going to stay on that track. Another one just came in and said, can you talk about some of the resources available specifically for first generation or underrepresented graduate students? So I'm not sure if either one of our students want to talk about this, or if Devin wants to hop in and give us some information here, but we'd love to hear about those too.
I can jump in real quick and then turn over to Devin. As part of my project for the GSADC, one of the programs that I rolled out was the First Generation Graduate Student Initiative. And what that entailed was a professional development piece, as well as a peer mentorship component. And so both of those pieces are being, they're going to be going on during this year as well. I know some folks in grad studies have taken over the professional development piece, and so keep an ear out. You'll be hearing about programming directed specifically for first gen grads, and I also know that there are other mentorship programs around campus that maybe Devin can sort of talk about now.
So yes, so first of all, you have 2 graduate diversity officers within grad studies. And so one of our roles is to be a support to students. So if you're just thinking about your experience as a first-gen student or a student from a historically marginalized community, underrepresented student on campus, myself and my colleague Josephine Moreno can be first points of contact if you just have a little bit of anxiety around that in general. In terms of programs and in terms of activities on campus, there are the Affinity graduate student clubs. So there's the Asian Pacific Islander Club, there's the Black Graduate and Professional Student Association, so BGPSA, there's the Singaporean club. So there's a club for every identity group on campus. So first thing I encourage you to do is find those clubs, find your people. The school is big, and one of the things that the clubs does is it makes the institution feel a lot smaller and much more community oriented. In terms of things coming directly out of graduate studies, both Josephine and I have been working on initiatives. So Sloan mentioned the First Gen initiative that she started. My colleague Josephine Moreno worked with her on that. And so as Sloan transitions out and we try and institutionalize that program some more, Josephine will likely be your contact on that. I am running community dinners, which are still called community dinners because they were intended to be community dinners before COVID and 2020 decided to just blow us all up. So, and I better be careful what I say because the universe is literally taking everything literally now. So anyway, those are the community dinners are these bi-weekly events where there's a standing Zoom link and you just come in and shoot the breeze. And sometimes we chat, sometimes we trash talk about sports or favorite TV shows. It's supposed to be a very relaxing environment that allows us to build community. The link to that exists, but I just realized in this very moment that it isn't present on our diversity website, so I will put it there. But the way that you find out about it is typically I send that out to the graduate coordinators and then they send it out to the students. But I'll post it anyway, just in case. Another thing that I want to encourage you to think about, particularly if you're a first-gen student, you're a student from an underrepresented group, is you want to start building community within your program because you need friends in your program. And so we've actually met with coordinators. Our director of mentoring and advising, Elizabeth Sturdy, gave a really wonderful workshop a couple of weeks ago where we talked to grad coordinators about how to build community within their own units, within the graduate groups and the programs. So they are already prepared. They understand that we're distanced and that we need extra attention in terms of trying to build community. So when those opportunities come up, we highly encourage you to participate in those things. And so I think Stephen Albrecht said it best, your grad coordinators are the first point of contact for everything. And oftentimes they have the information that you'd really be interested in. Some particularly, for example, engineering has a first-year learning cohort program. So you might want to check and see if there's anything like that in your department. There's also diversity, equity, and inclusion committees. Not that I want you to go do work, but oftentimes if you sit on those committees within your departments, you find friends. And so really what I find to be really important for students who are first-gen students or students who are going to be very isolated in their departments is to build community and try and start building it as quickly as possible. And that may be joining committees, that may be joining clubs, that may be coming to the community dinners, that may just mean shooting an email to Josephine or I for information on, or more specific information on ways to do that. But we are here, we're available. Not that many people utilize us, but we are available. So if you have questions and you just want to chat or figure out what other options there are, please feel free to reach out. I think, Cross-Cultural Center, there are resource centers on campus that are also cultural affinity resource centers. They are geared toward undergrads, but nobody ever turns you away. So just go anyway.
Well, thank you.
If I can quickly add, again, as I mentioned earlier, the CAN program, Community Advising Network counselors, they are spread it out across the campus, like Devin mentioned, cross-cultural center, one of my colleagues at the CCC or LGBTQIARC or Latinx Success Center, Native American Studies. You know, there are like about 20 different partner units. All of my colleagues at the CAN team, they have office hours, virtual office hours, or resources available there. And as we are aware that some of the students, particularly first gen or underrepresented students, may not be very comfortable with the idea of seeking counseling service. One of the advantages for the CAN program is you can contact my colleagues and can start with a consultation service at the beginning, and you can, you know, build some comfort. And if you, a few sessions later, you want to transition to counseling service, then you can transition to counseling service with my colleagues at the CAN team. So again, I wanted to highlight this very important, significant resources for grad students.
Awesome. So you notice that the resources that we have and the people that really want to interact with you are overwhelming and numerous. So whatever happens to be the way that you feel comfortable getting involved, that's really the big takeaway, I think, with all of it, is reach out to people, get involved, get yourself connected, right? As Sloan said, this is a place we want you to feel like you're home. So that's a big part of it. Okay, I'm going to take a hard turn though from some of those support networks as far as, like, you know, connectivity and community. And I'm going to do a real quick plug. I'm going to let you know that the links to the virtual resource fair have been delivered. They should be in your inbox right now. So when we keep talking about going to see people at the virtual resource fair, make sure you know where that email is. That's coming up soon. But this next one is actually for our GPI folks. So for Teresa and David, there's actually a couple of questions here. So I'm going to kind of lump them together. So the first question is, when should I start thinking about my professional development? Are there resources available only for those ready to graduate or for others? And then another question is, where can I get help with my writing? So I figure you guys would be able to answer both of those pretty well.
Sounds good. I'll go ahead and grab the writing one. Do you want to do the other one, David?
Sure.
Okay, so we have, as you saw, one of our competencies is writing and publishing, and we have a host of resources available to you through that. So we do workshops on writing. We have one-on-one writing consultations where you meet with a peer advisor to go over your writing. And so we're just loading the workshops for this quarter on the website, so they should be there soon, but we'll have a number of directly related writing resources.
So as far as resource access and how far you are along in your career, there are a couple programs that aren't open to you until you are later in your program, until you advance to candidacy in a PhD program. This is primarily just because of the logistics of it being impossible to participate in these programs while you're still doing coursework. But for the most part, I would say all of our resources tend to have better outcomes for those who participate earlier. And one of the strongest resources we can provide is support in planning how you'll be spending your time here at Davis. So I'd strongly encourage everyone to get in touch with us sooner rather than later. We've never had the experience of someone coming in and being like, oh, this is too early, come back later. Because in general, by the time you think it's too early, it's probably a little bit too late.
Great. So we've got another question. This one's actually about a learning disability. It says, I have a learning disability. Where can I get information about accommodations? And there was some additional question about what sort of resources do student employees, TAs specifically, have if their department or the disability services doesn't provide accommodations. So I know that there's a difference between accommodations for students and for employees. And I know that sdc.ucdavis.edu is a good place to start to find those differences. But what other sorts of resources do we have on campus, or what other sort of tips would you give someone if they're looking for accommodations specifically to be a TA?
So yes, Laura, you're right. There's the employment side and the accommodations on the employment side, and then there's the academic side. And this is disability management services for the employment side and SDC, Student Disability Center, for the academic side. However, they work closely together. And if you talk to one of them, they can put you in touch with the other. We have worked with an SDC specialist named Abby Tilden, ABBYTILDEN. She's deeply familiar with graduate student careers, graduate student education. She's a person who can help you navigate this. So I would encourage everyone to be in touch with Abby Tilden at Student Disability Services. And I want to applaud the questioner for being proactive about this. This is something that students need to initiate, working with SDC or DMS, and then using those resources to in turn talk to their program, talk to their TA supervisor, and talk to their professors. So you're doing the right thing, and I would start with Abby Tilden.
I want to jump in on that. You know, it's also, just from handling the TA assignments, sometimes the accommodations are something just as simple as not scheduling in a specific type of class if there's a cent. So even starting with your program and asking your graduate program coordinator or the faculty in charge in your program, hey, this is a situation I have, how can we accommodate it? Sometimes those accommodations, depending on your comfort level, can be made just in a simple conversation. So keep that in mind as well.
Great. Communication is key, right? Okay, I know I've seen a lot of questions coming by, both in our Q&A chat and then now we have it here. Questions about Aggie cards. How do I get my Aggie card? Well, I think I have the answer, which is that the registrar's office is going to be holding all of those physical Aggie cards until you are physically present here on Davis. So basically the Aggie card is not something that you need to have access to right now. It's when we all return back to campus that you'll be able to get them. The Aggie card office, I believe, is on the second floor of the Memorial Union. I think someone typed in it's 253 Memorial Union. So if we have anybody who's here on campus and you want to go pick them up, you should be able to get access to them. Does anybody have any other information beyond that I didn't cover? Fabulous. I will move on. Okay, so this is actually, go ahead.
I think you can get them mailed. If you want them mailed, you can, on the request, you can fill in your address and they'll mail it to you. Again, I don't really know how much use it's actually going to be to you, but you can if you really want to.
Okay, good to know, good tidbit. All right, guys, I have another question here. This is actually a pretty great one. I think it'll provide a lot of conversation. It says, one of my friends in grad school had a lot of trouble working with their PI or major professor, and can be called by a lot of different names. If I have a conflict with my PI, where do I go for help? So I'm sure that anyone could start and everyone could add in other pieces that we could help to figure out this puzzle. So let's start actually maybe with Brad and Ellen, and then we'll kind of let people jump in as they need to.
Yeah, that is a great question. I would encourage, like Ellen pointed out, and with the constellation and the network you have graduate advisors in your program. So I would encourage you to talk to either your graduate program coordinator, who might direct you to one of the graduate advisors. Often programs assign a graduate advisor, so you should find out and know who that is early on in your career. And that may change from year to year, but because the faculty, programs may adjust that as needed. But find out who that is. They can help navigate inside that conversation and even provide other options. If you have a bad relationship with your PI, your major professor, primary investigator, depending on your program, there's a lot of ways to handle that and a lot of ways to deal with that situation. And they're going to be the ones that are going to help guide you, whether that be, navigating and maintaining that relationship, if it's jumping from it to a different research group, or if you're, part of it maybe is your research options have changed, and not to open the door to this, but even moving to a different graduate program, or changing your degree objective, because maybe part of the conflict is that you're not sure what you want to do. So there's a lot of people to talk to about that process, not sure what you want to do, but not sure that that's the direction that you want to move forward with. So.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, the way Brad framed that. I mean, Sometimes difficulties with the major professor can be communication difficulties, in which case working with your colleagues and your faculty champions on how to improve communication, whether that means scheduling regular meetings, writing email follow-ups. There are all kinds of ways that you can improve communication with the faculty members that you're working with. So sometimes a conflict can be that kind of a conflict, a communication conflict. Sometimes it can be a misalignment of expectations. You went into a project thinking one thing, the PI went into it thinking another thing, and you're going to need someone with expertise in the particular research area to help the two of you sort that out. That's something where the grad advisor or the chair of the department can be a really helpful resource, or someone else who's part of the research group can help you with that. Sometimes it might be you're in a conflict because you want a particular career path and they think that that career path is not the one they're preparing you for. And in that case, you might need to find a new advisor or help educate them about the kind of career path that you're seeking, and talking about some of the resources that GPI mentioned before. So there can be a whole host of reasons why that relationship is fraught. And there's more than one person that you can go to. And I just want to encourage everyone here, if you feel discomfort or you feel some static, start talking about it. And don't be put off if the first person says to you, they're just like that, right? You deserve to be supported and to have clear explanations for what's going on in your own academic work. And so ask someone else. There are folks who will help you pull it all together and find a new path if that's what's needed.
I'll also add to Ellen's point that, well, sort of harkening back to our original question, which is, what are some things you can do to be successful as a first-year grad student? Start having these conversations now so that when the problems come, they're less scary to talk about and it doesn't feel so personal. When there's this big power differential between major professor and student, it's easy to feel like professors are punching down and that it's personal, but it usually isn't. And so by establishing communication, clear lines of communication early, that can help. But in the event that that doesn't happen for whatever reason, there's also often in individual departments, and certainly campus-wide, an ombudsperson. This is a person who you can go and speak with. It's confidential and they are not mandated reporters. And so if you just need someone to work through how to manage the communication with, often the ombudsperson is a really good place to start, particularly if you don't feel like your issue rises to the level of needing to involve Ellen or myself or Josephine. The ombudsperson can be a really great place to start. I also want to harken back to what Bayan said about having peer colleagues outside of your department. Oftentimes it can be scary and stressful and kind of intimidating to discuss with people within your department, to other students, the issues you might be having, because you feel like maybe later it'll come back as some sort of judgment or about your capabilities within the department and things like that. But if you make sure that you have a friendship circle that includes folks outside of your department, it also allows you to have these kinds of conversations and work through them and talk through them without that fear. There's no competition because you're in completely different fields. And so you can be a little bit more free with the things that you discuss. So I highly encourage that. I also encourage you to find mentors who are outside of your department. I understand that right now that's kind of hard because we're in this virtual world, but at some point, figuring out a way to do that will be really key, because you also want to have at least one mentor who does not have a stake in your thesis, right? Meaning they're not making any critical decisions about it. Their sole purpose is to help guide you through the process that they've already themselves been through. And that can be really helpful because they serve as someone who can give you really blunt advice, and with whom you can be very honest without feeling like there might be any repercussions later. So get yourself a mentor outside of your department, find you some friends outside of your department. And if you feel like it doesn't rise to the level of involving grad studies, seek out the ombudsperson, because that's confidential and there is no reporting requirement.
Great. Okay, well, I'm going to ask this one, and I think this is actually really great for a lot of students who are coming to us from outside of the United States. They say that English is my second language. Where can I get support to improve my English skills? So Brad, do you want to actually start us off by talking about some of the UWP courses that are available? That'd be a great place to start, I think.
Yeah, so actually I was looking up all the information. Nope, let's get the name right. I lost the page. I had it up. Anyway, International and Academic English is a great resource, iae.ucdavis.edu, to start off with. So for those of you that are international students and have specific requirements for teaching, there's the test of oral English proficiency, the TOEP, that you'll be required to take or have already taken, since I believe that they offered it online this year over the summer. So that is a great place to start off with. They also actually have a short intro to IAE video on their website if you go to the graduate page, which I would really encourage you to look at. And so they have the requirements for the UWP, which is the University Writing Program courses that are required for international students in that first year. And then also language coaching workshops. They have some speaking groups, language buddies that you can participate in. So I know Teresa, I think, also had some information that she wanted to share on this as well. So I'll let her jump in.
Brad, you shared it. That's exactly where I was going to send people. It's a wonderful webpage. They have just a comprehensive set of resources for anyone who's an English language learner or wants to brush up on their skills, and including groups that you can attend. So I'm not sure they have a place to drop it in the Q&A, but there is a website for that. It's fairly simple. It's iae.ucdavis.edu/graduate. And if you have any trouble finding that, just email me and I'll send it to you.
And we'll also make sure it's in the Q&A that's shared afterwards. So there will be links to all of the websites and offices that we've talked about in our questions from orientation, I'm sure.
And I want to encourage all graduate students to develop writing groups and writing partners. This is something you'll need for the rest of your career, is to have groups of folks who read your writing and give you feedback, and you can give them your writing, and vice versa. To have people, especially those who, are not grading you, but can be a first read, can look at things that are really rough, who have different language strengths than you do. Some of my friends are wonderful at grammar. Some are not wonderful at grammar, but they know how to make my rather dull grammatically correct sentences have real impact. This is something that is essential for anyone who wants a career that involves any writing, and all academic careers involve writing. Scientists write all the time. It's how they get their money. Having a writing group and writing partners is essential.
And I want to chime in on to follow on what Ellen just said. There is a writing partner program. So if you go to our Grad Pathways page on writing and publishing, there is a link to sign up to be matched with a partner. You can specify what you're looking for. You might want someone who's in your discipline, but you might not. You might want to be able to share it without feeling like there's any competition there. And then again, we have our writing retreats. It's a little different now that they're virtual. In person, they used to be with tea and snacks. We'll get back to that someday, but we're still running them virtually. So you can join a group of other grad students who are writing for a 3-hour block of time, or you can drop in for just some portion of that. There's always a writing consultant there that can meet with you to talk with you about your writing in a breakout room if needed.
Wonderful. That's great advice. I feel like I should have my second grader talk to Ellen too, because she needs some help being motivated that writing is important. Great. We're actually going to kick one over to Stephen, who has been patiently waiting. Actually, this is a question that I think is really going to be helpful to people. Basically, someone said they heard that the first stipend is not going to be available until November. They said, is this true for every type of financial aid or for just some of them? So the question is really about when payments start and when students can expect to see that, I think.
So what we try to do is coordinate fellowship stipends and employment salary to be paid at exactly the same time, because graduate students switch funding sources from quarter to quarter, and we want them to match up. And so for most jobs, you don't get paid on the first day you work. You have to work a while and then you get your paycheck. And so the fellowship stipends go along the same schedule. Your first fellowship stipend or employment salary paycheck will be right before November 1st for the fall. Again, the financial aid department has a transition loan program available. So if you need funding early, just go there and fill out their web form and you can get money very soon. Now, if you've completed a FAFSA and accepted financial aid loans, those refunds start hitting maybe even today or tomorrow. So if you're expecting a refund loan after it's covered your tuition and fees, then that refund comes earlier. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Stephen. That's super clear. In all of the financial things that are sometimes unclear, Stephen made that one clear. Okay, we only have about 2 or 3 more minutes for this, so I'm going to try and wrap it up with our last few questions. I think the next couple can be answered pretty quickly, so maybe Brad might want to hop on these. So I'll ask both of them. If I have to take a break, what are my academic leave options? And then the second one that has nothing to do with taking a break, but it's also something you can answer. What are the average units one should take per quarter?
I'm going to answer those in reverse order. 12 units, 12 units, 12 units, 12 units. Everything is tied to your registration and enrollment. So for financial aid, for fellowships, for TA, GSR employment, the standard base answer is 12 units. There are some exceptions that can be made if you're in a master's program, and for some exceptions if you're in a PhD before advancing to candidacy. But with those, I would say they're specific. So talk with, again, your graduate program coordinator, or reach out to one of the senior academic advisors and we can help navigate that process. If you need to take a break from the university, first off, I want to put this out there. There's nothing wrong with taking a break from graduate school. So if you need to do that and you are able to recognize that, awesome, do it, because you know our bodies can tell us when we need to take breaks from things. Stress is great, but also taking a step back from it. So HELP is the Planned Educational Leave Program, and it's a way the university has put in place for you to say, hey, I need to take a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters off for any reason whatsoever, if you're going to go explore career options, if you need to just take a time off and work for a little bit, or again, whatever the reason is, HELP is there for you for up to 3 quarters. And again, you work with both your graduate advisor, the faculty advisor, and the graduate program coordinator inside your program with us to navigate that. It puts a pause on your study so that you can come back to the university with and pick up where you left off when you said, hey, time out. So, and then time in. It's like a game of freeze tag almost.
Wonderful. You're it, Brad. Okay, the last one I'm going to choose from is the one that I was hoping I could save till the end because I think we're all excited about it. And it has to do with the Graduate Center at Walker Hall. So someone is asking what sort of services will be available at Walker Hall once the Graduate Center opens. So feel free to hop on in and let people know what you will be doing and what sort of services you will be providing once we move over there, guys. Let's start with Teresa and David. Let us know what sort of setup we can expect to see from you.
So our offices will be in the building as will everyone else's, but there will be a quiet writing room that students can use. There will be writing consultations on site. We expect to have career advising on site. We're moving most of our Grad Pathways workshops into the building, so it'll all be there for you when you come in. David, anything else about professional development?
Yeah, just on that note, as we move our workshops in there, the technology in the new building will allow us to do more recording and more simulcasting. So if you're stationed at one of the research stations while we're all working from home, if you don't want to drive in from Sacramento, all of that should become even more accessible and seamless with the move to the new building.
Excellent. And buy-in, will the counseling center, or will you have a presence over at the Graduate Center? And if you could unmute, yes. Yeah, that'd be great.
I will have an office at the new Walker Hall Graduate Student Center.
Wonderful. And I'm thinking about the first floor setup. Jonathan, can you tell us what the GSA is going to have going on over there?
Yeah, so the Grad Commons is going to be one of the best spaces in this whole building, in my opinion, because it's one of the few areas on campus where graduate students can specifically congregate. Um, Prior to Walker Hall, we didn't really have that. That didn't exist. Um, Maybe in your department you might have something, but not something that is, just apart for any graduate students. So the GSA offices are actually located right off of the Grad Commons. And so we have our office manager, Erin, she's going to be housed there. So whenever things open up again, if you have questions about your travel fund receipts or anything like that, you can always go to her. She'll be right there. It's also going to be home to our Graduate Student Association food pantry. Which we're very excited that we secured a $5,000 grant to buy a fridge. So we will actually be serving non-shelf stable perishable items out of that in conjunction with the Aggie Compass. So we are thrilled that that's going to make the move over there. The Grad Commons is also going to be home of Coffee Bagel Donut Day, which is a weekly event where graduate students can come in and get their coffee and bagel or donut. And just hang out. There's fruit, bananas, a lot of people hanging out, just kind of doing their thing every Friday morning. It's one of our largest budget items for the GSA, actually. So we're really sad that we have had to cancel that for quite a long time. But when things return back to in person and we're allowed back in the buildings, you can have that every single week. In the Grad Commons, and that's right across from the library. So if you feel like you need to come in and grab a cup of coffee and head on to studying, it's the perfect place to do that.
Awesome. And then I know that for everyone else, all of the Brady Bunch faces you're seeing right now, we're all actually going to be working in that building too. So all of the resources that Ellen and Devin and Slon and Brad that we all provide, you'll be able to get access to. I think we've also got some great academic resources in addition to the writing rooms. I think there's small meeting rooms that are really intended to be used for benchmark milestones along your academic journey, particularly when you're doing your doctoral qualifying exam. The goal is to have those be spaces that students can have those big milestones. So come on, COVID, let's end so that we can go to this amazing place where you can see all of these wonderful people. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up our question and answer session, and we're almost at the very end of our GSA. So thank you so much to all of the panelists for all of your knowledge and expertise and for your willingness to help all of these folks. All right, so maybe on the last face you'll see, maybe not. Obviously, there's a thank you on the screen. I've got like 2 minutes to wrap it up. I get the start and the end of this. That's why they really give it to me, because I need to hear myself talk and because I like saying things. But I think the big takeaways from this, right? As far as what we wanted to say to you, there are tons of resources here on campus, right? They are available. People like it when you get in touch with them. I mean, we're all living in a virtual world. And I think that it can feel like, I don't want to intrude on somebody's time. Everybody's really busy. Believe me, I know I love it when I get email because I can stop just being alone. I can actually feel like I'm connecting with someone. So that is a big part of it. We want you to take advantage of all the resources that we've mentioned. If you don't remember what those resources are, just reach out and ask. Say, I need help with X. And we will be more than happy to help you with that. And that's what our jobs are. We're here to help you. I mean, we do a great job of providing a world-class education. We're really doing the best we can to provide a community of people that really are amazing scholars, but we want to help you get connected so that you can feel like UC Davis is your home. And I think the last thing that we want to leave you with, again, are things that you heard at the beginning, which are that you're amazing, right? Stephen has said, you guys win a ton of money. You guys are the cream that rose to the crop. Out of 13,000 applicants, you are the small percentage that has come and is starting your graduate career here with us at UC Davis. You're brilliant people. And the last piece of it is that UC Davis is your new home. We're so excited that you're going to spend the next 2 to 7 years with us. So we're really excited to connect with you. We're really excited to get you started on this journey. So that is it for the large part of graduate student orientation. I really appreciate all of your time that you spent watching this. But the fun is not over yet. No. I do want to remind you one last time, we're plugging our virtual resource fair. We're going to have 2 different sessions. So we have certain rooms that are open from at 12:15. And then we'll have new rooms that will open again at 12:45. You should have received an email with all of those Zoom hyperlinks about a half an hour ago. So make sure you check your email. And then feel free to kind of bounce back and forth between the different Zoom rooms as much as you need to either get your questions answered or to just get the content that they are providing. Unfortunately, it's not a webinar, so we're not going to actually be recording the content of within those Zoom rooms. So if you cannot make it there, please reach out to those resources and those presenters on your own. And just to plug some of them, right, we've been asking questions about the Aggie card. Registrar's office will be there. Someone asked a question about how do I do recreational activities? Well, guess what? Campus Rec will be there. Teresa and David talked about professional development resources. Well, Internship and Career Center will be there. So that's another great professional development thing that will be represented. And then at a later session, we can have you get all of your financial questions answered. Our whole financial support team will be available, so feel free to check in on them. Also, Jonathan will be talking more about the GSA, how you can get involved and what they can do for you. The Shields Library, somebody asked a question we didn't get a chance to answer about what sort of academic literature and online access they had. Ask the Shields Library, and then you can meet our new GSADC. You've seen Sloan's wonderful face, now you can meet our new GSADC who's coming in soon. Her name is Jillian. So we hope we will see you there for all of that. Have a wonderful day, and welcome again to UC Davis. Bye, guys.